Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto inherited primordial power in high school DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by mahpa and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The underworld was very different from what many believed it would look like. When the word underworld was spoken, many would instantly think of a dark, frightening and vile place where fire and lava were blazing at every turn and filled with toxic air that killed anyone that dared to breathe. Therefore many would have been incredibly surprised when the underworld was nothing like this description and was instead very similar to Earth, the human world, with the exception of the sky that was purple and filled with dark clouds. The one thing many were correct in thinking was that the underworld was home to the devils, the dark race of beings that many had greatly misunderstood and believed to be nothing more than evil beings. Devil, however, were just like regular people but with bat wings on their backs and have an array of different abilities that could be used for either good or evil purposes. All devils have increased physical abilities such as strength, endurance, speed, and senses. They could even live for thousands of years and retain a youthful appearance. It made the devils a near-perfect species. The underworld was enormous, easily the size of Earth but just in a different dimension, much to contrary beliefs that thought it was underground like its name would suggest. Its lands varies with cities, grasslands, fields and farmlands, forests, etc. Throughout the underworld, large portion of this land was owned by various families, most noticeably the pure blood families of the 72 pillars. The devil's greatest enemies were the angels of heaven and the ones known as fallen angels. Angels that had given into the sinful natures and had fallen from heaven, which created a new species of supernatural beings. The three factions of angels, devils, and fallen angels warred against one another under the leaderships of the biblical god, the four great Satans, and the fallen angel organization, Gremory, led by the fallen angel Aazel, in a conflict which came to be known as the Great War. When the war eventually ended, each side had lost much and left the three factions in a state of conflict. However, due to a state of extreme exhaustion after the Great War and with all three factions losing their main forces, either of the three sides wanted to continue battling. So while there was no peace between the factions, outright battles did not occur either. Many years later, and after the death of the Satans, the underworld fell into a civil war with the Satan families wanting to continue their family's legacy and fight against the angels and the fallen ones, while on the other side were many of the remaining families of the 72 pillars that had been reduced to now just 34 that wanted peace and a new order. The conflict lasted for almost a decade until eventually 5 devils from 5 different families all stood together and pushed back the old Satan faction and secured the war in favor of the anti-Satan faction. Cerea Gremory, Ajuka Astaroth, Cerea Falls Citri, Falbium Glaciolabelas, and finally Naruto Phoenix. Though young, each young devil boasted incredible raw power that left many shaking where they stood and could decimate entire countries at a time. Each with their own skill set and power. Individually they were powerful but together they were near invincible. The strongest of the group, Cerea Gremory and Naruto Phoenix, were best friends, rivals, and had known each other since they were in diapers. Cerea with the power of destruction and Naruto with the power of immortality and fire. The two quickly became names that struck fear into the hearts of anyone that heard their names. The civil war had taken its toll on every devil alive, but eventually the anti-Satan faction prevailed, with Cerea landing the final and deciding blow to Riservim Levon, Lucifer, and securing the victory for the new devil faction. With this, the old faction retreated and hid while the underworld quickly began to change under its new management. With the leaders gone, the 5 stepped up to take responsibility of the underworld and to protect its people and everyone that lived and breathed in their home world. Before this could continue, a problem arose, one that surprised many and shook the friendship between Cerea and Naruto. Despite being best friends, the two had their arguments from time to time and had their own opinions on certain matters. However, many were left surprised when the very thing that caused tension between the two to rise was not a thing or an object but in fact a person, a woman called Graia Lucifuge. Graia was a beautiful woman from one of the extra demon families that was seen by many as the perfect female devil. She had beauty, she had brains, she had power, and had an attitude that could keep even the foulest of male devils in line. She had originally been on the side of the old faction, but after meeting the 5 heroes of the new faction she defected and became a powerful ally for the new group. She quickly stood out to everyone, but none more so than Naruto and Cerea. At first she had taken a shine to Naruto, and the two quickly became a couple and had spent many months together in their own bubble of love. But while Naruto had given his heart to Graia, her eyes and her heart was secretly yearning for another. It was only a few weeks after the defeat of the old faction that Naruto had returned home to find his girlfriend's clothing spread across the floor along with male clothing that definitely did not belong to him, and could hear voices coming from their room. Every step he took caused a bit of his heart to break off until eventually it shattered altogether when he found Graia in their bed with none other than his best friend, Cerea. What happened next led to Cerea almost being burned to a crisp and reduced to ashes as Naruto went into a fit of rage as he attacked his now former friend. It took the combined efforts of Naruto and Cerea's parents along with Graia, Cerea Fall, Ajuka and Falbium to eventually restrain him and stop him from killing Cerea. It didn't take them all long to figure out why he was angry with the state Cerea and Graia were in. A week after the incident, Naruto and Cerea did the only thing they could think of to resolve the problem and decided who Graia's heart belonged to. They fought, and what a fight it was. The fight that made entire war look insignificant in comparison and lasted for almost 3 days straight with either of the fighters giving either a moment of rest, and which shook the entire underworld to its core. Enormous parts of the underworld had been reduced to rubble, and would take years to rebuild, though thankfully no one was harmed after being evacuated to somewhere safe. After the 3 days the victor finally emerged. That day, despite his great power, Cerea proved to have that extra little bit needed to win the match, and Naruto was defeated and now having to watch as his best friend spent his life with the woman that Naruto loved. Both wound up in the hospital due to exhaustion and injuries that not even Naruto immortality healing was able to heal properly. Both were confined to bed rest and not to leave the bed until the doctors told them to. It was during this time that Naruto was visited by Graia. She told him she was sorry and that he didn't deserve to be hurt the way he did, but she couldn't deny her feeling for Cerea anymore. She loved Naruto. He was her first love, and no one ever forgot their first love. But Cerea was her true love and the man she knew she wanted to spend the rest of her life standing beside. 2 weeks after the epic battle between the two great devils, Naruto packed his stuff and he left. He told no one where he was going, not even his family. All he left was a note saying he was going away and he probably would not be back for a long time. Afterward, his leaving, the underworld moved on and rebuilt. The remaining 4 heroes of the Devil Civil War took up the mantle of the old Satans and became the new 4 great Satans, with Cerea being the leader of the 4 and taking up the mantle of Lucifer, while Ajuka took Beelzebub, Seraphal took Leviathan, and Falbium taking Asmodeus. Then sometime down the line Ajuka created the evil peace system. With so few pure-blooded devil left and half of the 72 pillars now extinct, they needed to repopulate the underworld somehow, and that eventually led to the evil peace system. A system that allowed human and other creatures and people to be reincarnated and turned into devils. 200 years later, a pair of closed eyelids fluttered as the morning sun broke through the curtains and revealing the morning daylight. Continuing to flutter, the eyelids eventually opened and revealed a pair of blue eyes that shined like sapphires and stared up at the blank white ceiling. Tilting his head, the man looked at the alarm clock beside him and saw it read 8:30 before groaning. He grabbed a pillow and covered his face with it, trying to block out the sun. After a few minutes of silence, he let a loud sigh escape his mouth before he sat up forward and rubbed the sleepers out of his eyes. He was a young man in his early to 20s with tan skin and golden blonde hair that was kept short but was very spiky. He had a lean but muscular build that was built for both speed and power, and at full height would stand around 6 feet 1 inch. Along his right eye was a scar that went vertical and stopped above his cheek, while a few more scars covered his chest and shoulder, with one in particular still looking slightly red, indicating it was relatively new. He was Naruto Phoenix, eldest son of the current Lord and Lady of the Phoenix family, heir of the Phoenix family, and one of the great heroes of the Devil Civil War. Blinking and rubbing the sleepers out of his eyes, Naruto Phoenix's gaze left his bed and traveled over towards the window that showed the city of New York stretched around it. Since his leaving, he had traveled all over the human world and met some of the most wonderful people he could have ever met, as well as fought some of the strongest as well. He had a knack for attracting powerful opponents. As he sat there and pondered, his thoughts went back to an old and familiar wound. Flashback. Naruto entered his home with a big smile on his face as a small velvet box was clutched in his right hand. His finger was gently tapping the top of it, showing signs of being nervous. "I hope she likes this ring. Mother always said a girl's best friend are diamonds," he whispered to himself as he closed the door behind him. He had been together with his love Graia for a year now, and he felt ready to take the next step in their relationship. Some thought it might have been a little fast, but then again, with arranged marriages always floating around in the underworld, he figured most would be positive about this. 2 powerful devils like themselves marrying would have been a blessing for the underworld. It would be a positive sign for the future of their species and their home. He was about to call out when he stopped and stared at the ground where a gray lacy bra lay on the ground. Confusion appeared on his face, since Graia was not known for leaving her clothes around or even being a messy person. Heck, she slapped him many times when he left even a sock out of place. Then, however, he noticed more of her clothing going up the stairs, along with male clothing that he knew were not his. Seeing this made a sense of dread bubble up in his stomach as he took a slow step forward and began ascending up the stairs. Being careful not to make a sound, Naruto got to the top of the stairs and crept along the hallway, and towards their room, where he noticed his and Graia's room door was slightly ajar. As he moved closer, the sounds of moaning could be heard. At his side, the hand holding the small box shook harder the closer he got. Eventually getting to the door, he heard Graia and another man's voice. Graia, Cerea. Hearing that last name almost knocked the wind out of him, and he had to hold himself together to stop from dropping to the ground. All at once a wave of negative feelings hit him. Sadness, anger, rage, and the strongest one, betrayal. Slowly he dropped the velvet box, making a small thud while a steady stream of tears were beginning to go down his face. At his side, his fists stopped shaking and turned into fists. And then fire covered his fists, and the temperature skyrocketed. Did it just get hot in here? He heard Cerea ask as the Gremory male head shot up, while Graia looked confused at his face. I think it did. But that can only mean she stopped when her eyes shot open in worry and looked towards the door, only to find Naruto now standing there looking at her with betrayal and heartache. Naruto, she whispered as the two of them covered themselves up as Graia looked at him with an apologetic look. She watched as he looked at her, his eyes shining from the angry tears before she saw him turn his attention to Cerea, who had gulped and was trying desperately to put his pants on. Her eyes then widened even more when she saw him move. Naruto knew, she shouted as Naruto slammed into Cerea, and the two devils barreled out of the room and going through the wall. Graia grabbed one of her robes and followed quickly, desperately trying to stop Naruto from killing Cerea. End flashback. As he sat there, his thoughts briefly went to his family that resided in the underworld. The Phoenix family was one of the strongest and wealthiest of the remaining 34 families and was also one of the biggest. From the information he got on them from time to time, he now understood that he had two new siblings. Aazel, who was his younger brother, had only been 5 when he had left his home, and now his brother had apparently gotten married and had a child of his own. Naruto also gathered that he was in the top 10 in the rating games that the new faction had created. He was proud of his younger brother, especially when he caught wind that Aazel might be attaining the rank of ultimate class devil soon. Apart from Aazel, he gathered he had another younger brother named Rias as well as a little sister named Ravel who apparently looked a lot like their mother. Thinking about his mother always made him feel guilty, and for good reason. He and his mother had always been close since he was the firstborn. While he and his father Minato Phoenix got on well enough and he loved his father greatly, his mother had always been a big part of him becoming who he was today. Layla Phoenix was the best mother he could have asked for, and he felt ashamed of the pain he had obviously put her through when he left. He just hoped she understood why he left. "You're thinking too hard again," a whispered voice said from behind him as he felt a pair of long, smooth arms wrap around his shoulder as well as a nibbling feeling coming from his ear. Naruto patted the smooth arms and let out a dry chuckle before he turned his head and looked at the beauty that leaned across him. The person behind him was a beautiful woman with long blonde hair, gorgeous amber eyes, and carried a playful smirk on her face as she nuzzled into him. Though the most noticeable features she carried were the golden furred ears on top of her head, and the 9 gold tails with white tips at the end. "I'm surprised you're up so early, Yasaka-chan. Usually you're a late sleeper," he said and let out a low chuckle when she slapped him on his bare chest while pushing her assets against the back of his head. "I would, but I have this particular itch that needs to be scratched," she purred as he raised an eyebrow. "I was hoping you could help me with it. You're insatiable, you know that," he said, making the woman grin. "What were you thinking about? You looked lost there for a moment," she asked, having been watching him silently for the last 5 minutes. He didn't answer right away, but when he did, he just said one word: "Home." She now sighed as she rubbed her cheek against his, showing him that she was there for him. She knew the main reason why he had left home, and her heart did go out to the devil. "Then perhaps it's time to go home. I think nearly 2 centuries is long enough, don't you think?" she told him, having noticed in the last few years he had this faraway look on his face when he visited her. "Perhaps, but then again I have acquired a nice little quiet life outside of the underworld. It's been a while since any angels, fallen or other type of creatures have dared to attack me." I think the message finally got across. Maybe it might have been due to the fact that you gave that foolish seraph quite the beating the last time you two met. When someone beats a seraph, I'm sure word gets around. The guy was asking for it, and you know it. He kept bothering me with his "my holy flames are stronger than your demonic flames." I think we have proven who the strongest now is. She nodded but traced the scar going down his eye. "But he did leave a mark on you either way." He shivered a little at her touch as he put his hand over hers. "It's just one more to add to the collection." He let out a low sigh before a small smirk appeared on his face. He turned around quickly and pinned the beautiful kitsune onto the bed while spreading her legs wide with his knees. "Now, didn't you say you had an itch? Well, I suppose I could spare some attention. After all, you look after me so well," he muttered, getting a coy smile from the woman before they engaged in making out along with other things. An hour later, Naruto sat on the edge of the bed as he put a pair of black jeans and grabbing a red shirt from a bag by the bed. His special friend was currently in the shower. The woman's name was Yasaka, a kitsune yokai and Naruto's first friend he made when he left the underworld. He had met her by chance many years ago when he was traveling through Kyoto, and the two met after she interrogated him. Though rough at first, the two steadily built a friendship over the years, and Naruto would regularly visit Kyoto to visit his longtime friend and catch up. Looking at her, most would have thought she was just another pretty face, but people could not have been more wrong. She was incredibly powerful and boasted an enormous amount of yokai, and had great control over the fox fire that kitsune were famous for. Then turning into a fox the size of a skyscraper made most collapse from a heart attack. Their current situation, though, was one of friends with benefits. It was thanks to Yasaka that he slowly began to get over Graia, and she helped him eventually move past the silver-haired beauty. While there were and would always be feelings still there, he knew nothing could ever come of it anymore. The sex was just an extra for when either of them had that scratch that needed to be itched. They didn't exactly love each other in that way, but would admit there were some feelings there that had developed over the years, and many would mistake them for a couple when they were just walking around Kyoto. Both cared for one another, had a strong friendship where either would protect each other no matter the cost, and that was enough right now. Plus, Yasaka seemed to enjoy teasing him when she could and was not shy about flaunting what natural gifts she had been given when they were in private. "You almost ready, Yasaka-chan?" he called just as the door opened and Yasaka walked out with a towel wrapped around her body. Since Naruto was leaving later that day, They were going to spend some time together whilst Yasaka ran some errands. Be patient, my lovely phoenix. Us girls need time to make ourselves look beautiful, she said, winking at him and making him roll his eyes before he turned away and to give her privacy to get dressed. Plus I need to make sure Kunu knows she is still grounded. What did she do this time? He asked. Kunu was Yasaka's 9-year-old daughter. They were the spitting image of one another, and he could see Kunu growing up to be incredibly beautiful just like Yasaka. She also inherited the kitsune love of making trouble. She put laxatives in the drinks of the other kitsune again, Yasaka said, making Naruto chuckle and shake his head in amusement. 20 minutes later, and dressed up in a traditional shrine maiden's outfit, they eventually left as an orange symbol appeared beneath them and teleported them away. With Naruto and Yasaka, they arrived in a small garden area about a mile away from Yasaka's home before the two began walking down a small path with Yasaka's arm wrapped around Naruto's. So where are we going? Naruto asked as he looked around her surroundings as Naruto began walking down a dirt path. I figured while we walk I could visit a young kitsune girl. As you know, it's our mating season soon, and this will be the first big one for this girl now that she is of age. I want to make sure she is prepared. Mating season, huh? Naruto said, feeling her tighten her arm around his. I remember those times too well. I got a call almost every couple of hours to come and satisfy you last time, didn't I? She gently slapped his arm while blushing slightly. Behave you. Getting rid of the blush, she turned to look at him. She's nervous. There is a boy she likes and she wants to make sure she can control herself when the time comes. You know what happens when we lose control. Yeah, do I, he muttered. He remembered it far too well. It only happened once, but Yasaka had completely given in to her primal urges and lost control of them. She basically tried to jump him at every turn and got very violent about it. In the end he had to knock her out because she was becoming too unpredictable. And what about you? He asked as she looked at him. If mating season is round the corner, then have you thought about putting another bun in the oven, so to speak? The answer he got was a light laugh as she placed her head on his shoulder. Oh, maybe in a few more years. Right now Kunu is more than enough. Why are you offering to help? She looked at him and saw his eyes lowered a little and he smiled weakly. I did last time. Her eyes softened as a gentle smile appeared on her face too. Yes, you did, and I thank you every single day that you did that for me, she whispered as she thought of her daughter and then looked towards Naruto as she recognized the same look in their eyes. You know, you could tell her who you really are to Kunu. His reaction was a sigh which she knew was coming. You know I can't. At least not yet. I have enemies out there and even people back in the underworld may cause problems. When I feel it's safe, then we will tell her. She nodded before the two fell into a peaceful silence as they enjoyed each other's company. After an hour of trekking along the dirt path and a lot of complaining from Naruto since they could have just teleported there, they eventually arrived at the apartment of the kitsune girl in the northern part of Japan. While Yasaka had been here a few times to meet with the girl, hers and Naruto's face scrunched up when they felt the foul presence that the two were all too familiar with. I guess you're not the only one who had taken an interest in the girl. With that, the two jumped onto some nearby buildings and leaped across the rooftops until they arrived at a small apartment building where they immediately saw the new problem. Just outside the apartment building were two men and two women, each with a pair of black wings neatly folded on their backs. Fallen angels. As the two dropped down from the roof, two more fallen angels walked out of one of the lower apartments, one with a pair of wings and the other with two pairs of wings, which signaled he was the strongest of the little group. What caught their main attention though was the young girl that was draped across the other fallen angel's shoulders. Yasaka saw the girl and let a low growl come out from her mouth, figuring out that they did not have any good plans for this poor young girl and would most likely try and defile her. The fallen ones were known to be a very sexual race. Let's get going. Lord Kokobile will want to run tests on this one, the strongest member of the group said as the rest of them all nodded to his words. They stretched their wings and were about to fly when a cough interrupted them. Looking over, they saw Naruto and Yasaka watching them and leaning against a nearby car, one looking angry and the other emotionless. Yo, Naruto said with a small wave each before quickly noticed the glares that were sent their way. A devil and a kitsune, they all hissed out while the fallen with four's wings quickly went into the air to make a quick escape with their hostage. Before he could get very high though, a powerful slam hit his chest that forced him back to the ground and land on his back. He sat there in a daze for a couple of moments before he winced at the pain, shakily stood up. All he had seen was a small flash of golden hair. Quickly he turned towards and faced Naruto. That man, he hissed out as a light spear appeared in his hand as the other fallen looked at him strangely. Sir, he never moved, one of the females said as Naruto smirked and gave him a taunt with her index finger, indicating for them to come get some. Impossible. I know what I saw even if it was brief. He hit me, no one can possibly move that fast. I guess they don't know me very well, huh, Yasaka-chan? Naruto said before leaning away from the car. She had seen him move and was one of the very few that were able to. Gentlemen and ladies, I'm afraid I will have to ask you to give me the girl. I can't let you take a potential new friend away before I even get to know her, and by the looks of it I doubt you have any good intentions for her, he said as cracked his hands and neck, ignoring the outraged look they were giving him. We can do this two ways. The easy way or the hard way, and trust me when I tell you this. You should pick the easy way. Their response was creating a batch of light spear in their arms and in the air of various colors. All Naruto could do was sigh and scratch his head. Don't say I didn't warn you, he told them before turning to look at Yasaka. You want this one, Yasaka-chan? Her answer was a coy smile as her tails began to show and her eyes began to glow with power as fire danced around her hands. I thought you would never ask Naruto-kun, she told him before she disappeared in a great burst of speed and appeared in front of the fallen angels. Naruto just stood and watched as Yasaka made short work of the fallen angels. Underworld. At the same moment in time, another member of the Phoenix family sat on a royal-looking patio as a number of low to mid-class devils went about taking care of the large garden that was filled with bright and warm-colored flowers. Would you like some more tea, Phoenix-sama? A maid asked as she stood a few feet away from Lady Phoenix with a small tray in her hands with a freshly made pot of tea. Lady Phoenix, full name Layla Phoenix, was a beautiful young woman who, despite being many centuries old, still looked to be in her early to mid-20s with her hair held up in a ornate fashion and blue eyes that all her children seemed to have inherited. Wearing a beautiful and elegant red dress, she looked nothing short of what a queen would look like and had the power to back it up as well. She shook her head and waved her hand politely. No thank you, was all she said as the maid nodded and returned to the kitchen to continue with her daily duties. She sat alone, not being in the mood for company right now and needed to clear her thoughts on her own. Recently her mind kept going back to one subject that made a stabbing feeling appear in her heart. Her eldest son Naruto Phoenix had been gone for 200 years, and she had no idea where he was, how he was, or even if he was still alive. The only way she got any kind of information about him was from the rumors and the gossip that would spread to the underworld. While it was never enough to get a pinpoint location on her son, it was enough to find out what he had been doing at least. For many of it she was left almost having heart attacks from the things her son did. Fighting hordes of angels and fallen angels on his own, confronting a dragon king, battling a seraph. If she didn't know that her son was extremely powerful, then she would have died from worry years ago. Her son was not only a prodigy but genius when it came to hard work. He didn't get his great power from slacking off. He would spend entire days, weeks, even months training non-stop to fully control and advance his powers. Naruto's power had always been an oddity though. He had the full Phoenix powers like other members, but the first thing they noticed was his flames were not orangey red like normal fire but were instead golden. Golden demonic fire that had the potential to be as hot as the sun. They were significantly more powerful than normal fire, and even his wind affinity was nothing to joke at. Layla made sure he trained extensively in both element aspects. The second oddity that stood out about her son was his demonic power in general. It was far higher than most devils, and even when he was young his raw power was already on par with a seasoned high-class devil. Naruto Phoenix was most likely the strongest devil of the Phoenix family that there ever was, and it was because of him that their power equaled and rivaled families like the Gremory, Cerea, Astaroth and Glaciolabalas. It made her proud knowing her son was on par with the four great Satan, and that he had played a pivotal role in ridding them of the old faction. But with him gone, their overall power was now below those four families, since Naruto was the ace of their family, and while her children had potential and her second son rival making a name for himself, it paled next to her oldest. And then there was the Gremory family that left a bitter taste in her mouth and made her face scrunch up in distaste. Her relationship with the Gremory family had all but been severed after their eldest son and now daughter-in-law had broken her son's heart. There was a time when she and the Gremory matriarch Venalina Gremory had been best friends and had grown up together, even when Venalina was still a Baal and neither had married or had children. But after the incident and watching her friend welcome Graia into their home happily, the two had been strained greatly and rarely conversed with one another. The Phoenix family still allied itself with the Gremory family in business terms, and Lord Phoenix still spoke often with Lord Gremory. They had even arranged a marriage between her third son Riser Phoenix and their daughter Rias Gremory, though she doubted it would happen since the Gremory girl was doing everything possible to get out of it. Mama, she heard bring her out of her thoughts before smiling when she saw her youngest Ravel walking towards her with an annoyed look on her face. Her daughter looked like a carbon copy of her when she was her age but had her father's blonde hair like her other children par Naruto. If their hair was in the same style then they would have passed off as sisters. What's with that face, my dear? Ravel huffed in annoyance as she put her hands on her hips. Riser took his peerage to see Rias Gremory, and she still refuses to agree to the marriage. Plus she has this horrible pawn that is a complete pervert. He kept looking at all the girls' chests with this stupid look on his face. Layla Phoenix nodded and chuckled dryly as she listened to her daughter rant before she gently took her hand and led her to a seat in front of her. Taking her hair out of the pigtails she summoned a brush before she gently started brushing down her daughter's hair. Ravel just continued to talk about the perverted boy and the Rias Riser situation, while Layla offered an ear to listen. Ravel slowly turned her head to look at her mother, and noticed the far-off look that was on her face. "What's wrong, Mama?" she asked, recognizing when something was wrong with her mother. She got a sad smile on her face. "I'm just thinking about your brother, and wondering where he is right now." Ravel quickly understood which brother she was talking about, and nodded as she shifted in her seat and clenched the skirt of her dress. The subject of her eldest brother was kind of taboo in the Phoenix home because any mention of him would make their mother sad and upset. Even her father was careful when bringing up the oldest son. "Do you think he would like me?" she asked timidly and quietly. She had never met her eldest brother since he had left long before she was born. She had seen pictures and had heard what he was like from devils that knew him. He was brave, kind, silly and protective to the people he loved and could be ruthless and cold towards those that threatened him, or his people. She felt the hairbrush stop moving along her hair and get gently pulled out. Before she could say anything she felt her mother's arms wrap around her from behind and gently squeeze her hands while her mother's lips gently pressed on the back of her head. He will. I know he will. And when he comes back, whenever that may be, we can make new and happy memories with him. I'm sure he will love spending time with his little sister, so do not fret my child, she whispered. The mother and daughter shared a peaceful moment together, as they enjoyed one another's company as they thought about their lost family member. Beside them the phoenix symbol appeared and the third sun riser appeared out of it with an angry expression on his face with his entire peerage aside from Revel behind him. No rest for the wicked, she sighed inwardly as she prepared to listen to what her son now had to tell her. Back with Naruto, 45 seconds. That was slower than last time you were in a fight, Yasaka-chan. I fear you may be slowing down in your old age, Naruto teased as he watched his woman drag the now dead bodies of all the fallen angels and put them in a pile. The woman had temper when pushed the wrong way, just like these fallen angels had found out. Over his shoulder meanwhile was the young-haired girl that was still unconscious and now in his safe hands. If I'm old then what does that make you? Wizened of course, he said giving her a big grin which only served to make her eyes roll before placing the last body down on the pile. Watching as she moved to stand next to him, Naruto clicked his fingers and watched as fire erupted from beneath the pile and began burning at the bodies. So what now? Now we go back to my home and we wait for this one to wake up. I want to make sure they tried nothing on her while they were in the apartment. Plus I need to make sure Kuno is behaving. Naruto sighed before smiling, having been used to her attitude for nearly 200 years. She knew him just as well as he knew her. Clicking his fingers again an orange phoenix seal appeared underneath them and teleported them away, leaving the bodies to burn into nothing but ash. Chapter 1 completed. Chapter 2. Sitting on a small rock in the middle of a wide open space, Naruto sat in front of a small fire, as he placed a few sticks with fish he recently caught, and watched them cook. The sun beat down in the sky with very few clouds being present in the sky. It was a pretty nice day in his view. After leaving the underworld and knowing he could not just stay anywhere too long due to his power signature being recognizable, his usual form of lodging was camping in dense forest areas since it gave him the best option of not being found. Being one with nature and enjoying the wind hitting his face always eased the Phoenix Devil and always put a smile on his face. Ever since he was little he enjoyed the outside. Whether it had anything to do with his family's aerokinesis was a possibility, but the wind always soothed him. It was peaceful, and peaceful is what he was looking for. Plus around his campsite he had etched magic runes into the trees that normally helped conceal his location and kept him hidden. Only someone very powerful would be able to find him and see through them. A month had passed since he left Kyoto and said goodbye to Yasaka and Kuno. He traveled on foot across Japan and was now currently nearing a small town by the name of Kuo. He normally visited Kyoto every few months where he would stay for about a week before he left to travel again. Since he had traveled pretty much the entire world during his 200 years away from home, there was honestly little left for him to see, and more he began staying in certain countries that he enjoyed, with Japan being at the top of the list. He just found Japanese culture, and the country itself very beautiful and a pleasant place to live in. As he neared the town of Kuo, he could sense some devils and even some fallen within the town, but it was nothing that he could not handle. None were above the power level of a high-class devil. But he decided to camp outside of it just to play it safe. He was aware it was the territory of one of the devil families, but he was unaware of which one. If it came to a confrontation, he knew he could handle the situation quickly. From his seat, as he enjoyed the sound of the wind breezing past him and tickling his skin, the sound of rustling came from the side of him just as he picked up one of the cooked fish. He sat and watched as a black cat with amber eyes jumped out of the bushes and began eyeing his meal. Looking down at his meal and then towards the cat, he rolled his eyes and took the fish of the stick before putting the fish a few feet in front of him. Go on, enjoy, he said, and watched as the cat slowly came forward, sniffed the fish before began eating it hungrily, eating silently and happily, giving the cat an extra fish since it was looking up at him with big, glossy amber eyes. He was a sucker for cute things. You must have been hungry, huh? He said as the cat approached him and rubbed itself against his leg and making a loud purring noise. He scratched the top of its head and got louder purrs in return. He kept it up for a few minutes before he picked the cat up by the scruff of its neck and held it in front of his face, seeing the confused look on the cat's face. Now why don't you tell me why you are here, Devil-chan? He asked, and saw the cat's eyes get slightly larger. You may be able to turn into a cat, but your devil signature stays the same. Before either could respond, a new power appeared coming towards him that made himself and the cat look in that direction. He felt the cat shake a little and saw a tiny look of fear in its eyes. Looking at it curiously and knowing his hero complex was getting bigger, he placed that cat on the floor much to its surprise. Go and hide in the tent. Once our friend is gone, you and I will be talking, he said seriously. All he got was a stare in return before the cat purred at him again and quickly sauntered into the tent and disappeared from sight. Thankfully the large blue tent had similar runes on it and would be hidden from the world. Sighing and picking up a fish, he sat and ate while he waited. He didn't need to wait long before he heard footsteps come from behind him. He recognized the power, and his eyes were narrowed as he ate. You're either very brave or you're very stupid for coming here, Naruto muttered as a figure appeared from behind him. The figure was a man in his mid to late 20s with black hair with blonde bangs hanging in front of his face. On his face was a small black goatee and had dark pink-colored eyes. On his back, however, were 12 wings as black as night, indicating he was a fallen angel. You're a hard man to find. 200 years continuously on the move made you difficult to track. The man spoke as grin appeared on his face while Naruto simply looked at him, while not moving his head. And how exactly did you manage to find me, Aazel? He asked, narrowing his eyes at the now revealed Aazel. Aazel puffed out his chest. The Gregory have spies in every country on the planet. One of my guys felt a rather powerful devil signature appear a few weeks ago by chance in Kyoto. It took a while and a lot of magic tracking, but we eventually managed to find you. Naruto eyed the man cautiously. He had never liked this man. Being the strongest of the fallen angels and its de facto leader already put him on bad terms. And from the few meetings he had with Aazel, he could see the man was brilliantly smart like a Juka but more insane and loony. While the man was strong, it was his mind and tactics that many had to keep on their toes around. Before he fell, he was one of heaven's best, and would have been a seraph if he had not given in to his desires and sins. The last time I saw you, you kicked my ass and buried me into Mount Fuji. It took me 2 days to dig my way out of that volcano, Aazel said, pouting as Naruto ignored the stupid look on his face, and just asked him straight out. So what do you want? I doubt you just came here for the hell of it. You're very lucky I don't kill you where you stand, he spoke as Aazel gulped. Can I visit and talk to an old friend? He said with Naruto's face not changing even once, which led to him sighing and changing his appearance to a more serious one. After a few moments the fallen ones began speaking in a serious tone as Naruto leaned in slightly to listen. In the last decade there has been a group beginning to form that could very easily pose a threat to not only the human world but the underworld and heaven as well. This group is a little different from the other sort of groups or factions that have been put together in the past. Naruto nodded slightly while listening to what the man had to say. The group is not just solely one species but made up multiple divisions, each which has a different species of creature occupying it. Angels, fallen angels, devils, strays, magicians, yokai. You name it, they have all joined this group. He spoke serious before his eyebrows shot up in surprise when he heard Naruto chuckle. From the sound of what you're describing, I think I am correct when I say you are talking about the Cow's Brigade? He asked, getting a bigger surprised look from Aazel. You know? He asked as Naruto snorted and rolled his eyes. Of course I know. You don't think I would not know about a group like that getting together? You would have to be a fool not to take notice of something this big. But how do you know them? Aazel asked as the blonde shrugged. They asked me to join, of course. His answer got a surprised and slightly fearful look on his face, which made the Phoenix member wave his hand nonchalantly. Stop worrying, I said. No. Whatever their agenda is, I could care less. I have no intention of helping them. Aazel nodded, but in his mind he knew he would have to try and keep tabs on the blonde just in case he was lying. Does anyone else know? He asked, and saw Aazel shake his head. No, but I think your old buddies the Four Satans are beginning to notice. I have noticed Cerzex and Ajuka sending some of their peerage out more and more lately on recon missions. The actions of the Cow's Brigade is beginning to get noticeable. Not surprising, Naruto spoke before turning to look forward again. So how is my old friend Cerzex? I only kept up to date on my family's well-being. From time to time I check in on my friends, but those two I have left alone for some time. Stabbed anyone else in the back lately? Aazel winced at the bitter tone he spoke in, mentally fighting over whether he should tell him about a certain piece of information. It was not known publicly around the world, but many higher-ups were aware of the situation between the three devils. What was the last you heard about Cerzex and Graia? Aazel asked, and noticed the twitch in the blonde's hand when he said her name. Only that he and Graia were living a happy life as the mighty power couple of the underworld. About 15 years or so, I think. Then you should know they had a pretty big life-changing experience 10 years ago, he said, noticing the devil's attention was now firmly on him. And what would that be exactly? Naruto asked, trying to keep his emotionless mask on his face. Aazel sighed while rubbing the back of his head before he spoke. They had their firstborn 10 years ago. A little boy, I believe, he said, and quickly noticed Naruto look away and saw his right hand was firmly grasping the earth beneath him and making cracks in the ground. After 200 he was not surprised that the wounds still hurt. They fell quiet for a few moments as Aazel waited for the blonde to begin speaking. ICW, what's the boy's name? He whispered. Milikas. They named him Milikas Gremory. Milikas, huh? He said as his head gently nodded. That's good name. A strong name. I'm sure he will be as strong as his parents are one day with all that potential. Naruto sighed for a moment before he shook his head and went back to looking emotionless. Anyway, we're getting off track, and that's not the reason why you came here after all. So why come to me with this information? Why me of all people? Well, that's easy. I don't know what their ultimate goal is yet, but whatever it is, it can't be good, especially if members of the old Satan faction get involved, he said as Naruto got a dark look on his face. If the old faction even try, I will put them right back into the hole that they dared to crawl out of. Yes, but even you can't do it alone, Aazel told seriously. From what I can tell, they will target the underworld eventually. Whether it's people or land, a new potential war is brewing. The underworld will need you. Since when did you start caring about devils? I don't really, he said shrugging. But many of my brethren live in the underworld and you and I both know what war can cause. The pain, suffering and death it brings. I don't want to see another war break out. Meaning this could be the chance for our three sides to put our differences aside and make a real peace treaty, and not this paper-thin ceasefire that we have had for centuries, Naruto said, noticing where the conversation was leading towards. In response, Aazel nodded. If we have any chance, then the best way may be for the three factions to align. They spoke for 5 more minutes as Aazel explained it to Naruto, who was half listening and half thinking about the information he is being told. If the old Satan faction really were making a move, then he wanted to make sure they got put down on a more permanent basis. You should be taking this up with the Satans. Not me, Naruto said as he got up and began walking towards the tent. As was about to enter, he stopped and turned his head. But I will keep my eyes open and I will at least think about the possibility of going back to the underworld, he said. He turned around to walk away but stopped when Aazel now spoke up. In that case, you think you could do a favor for me? He asked, getting Naruto's attention again. He looked at Aazel for a moment before nodding at him to keep speaking. There's a kid I want you to look at who recently became a devil. Recently became a devil under Rias Gremory. He has a lot of potential, and I have a feeling he is going to be right at the center of what's to come. Hearing about some reincarnated devil under Cerea's younger sister, he raised an eyebrow. While he knew about the young girl, he never delved any further into the Gremory family than he had to. They left a bitter taste in his mouth, after all. What's so special about this kid? He asked, but never got an answer back as Aazel spread his wings and disappeared into the sky. Fallen bastard, he muttered under his breath before walking into the tent. The tent itself was a magical tent, meaning it was a lot bigger on the inside. While outside it looked like a simple 4-person tent, inside it was as big as a 4-bedroom house with a small kitchen with warm-colored carpet, mats and furniture. There was even a bathing area. So Nico-chan, I hope you have some answers for me and tell me just who you are. He spoke as he looked over towards one of the bedrooms and saw a cat-shadowed figure run along the white sheet. He then watched as the cat grew and took on a human shape in the form of a woman with a very sizable bust, a pair of cat ears and 2 tails swaying from behind her. Stepping out, the woman stepped out in front of him completely stark naked and gave him a cheeky wink. Thanks, Blondie-kun. I owe you one nya. 2 weeks later. So that's Rias Gremory, Naruto spoke as he stood on the top of a nearby building and looked down towards the 18-year-old girl who was currently taking part in a skirmish in front of Ko Academy. She was a pretty little thing with the familiar red hair and blue-green eyes that he recognized all too well. If not from the hair, then he would have mistaken her for Venelina Gremory and could easily recognize her as Lord and Lady Gremory daughter despite never formally meeting her. He was currently watching as the young Gremory girl was fighting a 10-winged fallen angel alongside her peerage and to his surprise 2 followers of the church, with one wielding a holy sword and the other wielding what looked like the Durandal. I have not seen that sword in a long while, he whispered as his hand came up to stroke the scar over his eye. Scanning the school, he could sense another high-class devil along with their peerage on top of the highest building in the academy. From what he could tell, they were creating a barrier to protect the school with. The devil's signature felt strongly like his old friend Cerea. Some kind of relation, I guess. I did hear Lord and Lady Citri had another child some time ago. He stood and watched before wincing when the Gremory girl blasted back but get saved by a brown-haired boy who he guessed was part of her peerage. They won't last long against Kokabeel, he thought as he had her arms crossed against his chest. They are nowhere near that kind of strength yet. Not even the Gremory girl can pose a threat to him. I'm actually a little disappointed. I thought the little sister of that red-haired bastard would be better than this. I guess I got my hopes up, Naruto said, twiddling his fingers before his focus went towards the brown-haired boy that stood protectively in front of her. Though there is something special about that boy, he muttered, drawing attention towards the boy and looked him over. Everything about him looked normal, and he did not feel all that powerful. But what drew him was the gauntlet that covered his left arm. A sacred gear, but it feels and looks different from the others I have seen. It feels stronger. A Longinus maybe? He scanned it with his eyes and played back in his head all the sacred gears that he was aware of, had seen and read about over the years. A red gauntlet with a green gem in the center of it, he thought, after a moment of silence, and he sucked in his breath. The boosted gear. I remember reading about it many years ago. The boosted gear, also known as the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet. It has the spirit of the Welsh dragon, Draig, residing within it. It has the ability to double the user's power every 10 seconds, and is one of the strongest sacred gear in existence, Naruto said to himself while shaking his head. No wonder Aazel was so interested in this kid. Naruto sighed and clicked his tongue as he turned to his left, and was not surprised to see Aazel standing on a building a little ways off, watching the battle as well. He then turned his head and saw Aazel motion to the battle. I better stop these kids from getting killed. Damn rookies, he muttered before his wing shot out and went into the air. He didn't want to get involved, but he couldn't let them die, even if one of them was the sister of the red-haired bastard. Outside Ko Academy, ISCI, Rias Gremory shouted as she slid along the floor and caught her pawn Issei Haidu before he could hit the ground, cradling his head in her lap as he tried to catch his breath. Bucho, he winced out as she cupped his face and looked around on the battlefield. All her peerage members were current down and out for the count. Her knight Kiba Yudo, Bishop Asia and Rook Kaneko Tujo were unconscious to her left with her wounded queen, Akino Himejima, standing protectively in front of them. To her right the church follower Irina was out for the count while Zenobia was barely standing and using the durandal to keep herself upright. Looking behind her she looked towards Sona and her peerage and could see the sweat along their foreheads. They would not be able to keep the barrier up for much longer. "Stay behind me, Bucho," her pawn told her as he shakily stood back up and the gem on his boosted gear glowed. "No, Issei, you're not strong enough," she said, grabbing his arm tightly. "You'll die in your current state." In front of her the fallen angel Kokobile was laughing as he began listing reasons why he would not fall, and how he would make their deaths as painful as possible. "Stay with me, Issei." "Stay with me," Rias whispered to her pawn as she held her arms around Issei protectively, daring the fallen angel to make a move. "Time to die, Gremory," Kokobile called out as light weapons appeared all around him. All Rias could do was gulp and grip Issei even more. It was times like this that she wished she was not so weak. Why she couldn't be more like her brother and sister-in-law. "Enough," a strong voice suddenly muttered as a blast of fire shot forward and sailed towards Kokobile. The fallen angel deflected it with a light shield but was unaware of the spear made of fire that was thrown towards him until it buried itself into his shoulder, knocking him back and putting him on one knee. "Who dares?" he shouted, looking around frantically for the person who dared to harm him. "I dare," the same voice said as everyone's attention turned to the left of them. All they saw was parts of Naruto's body, who had his face hidden by the shadows of the night with only his blue eyes remaining visible. "You have been a thorn in the side of many, Kokobile, and tonight I will end you once and for all," he declared as her eyes narrowed towards the fallen angel. "Fool! Who do you think you're talking to?" Kokobile shouted as light swords began appearing all around, all easily as big as cars, and made the young devils all gulp when they saw Therm. The swords could kill them at any moment. Naruto, though simple, shook his head before he decided to show this fallen angel what real power was as he released part of his demonic power. The moment he did, anyone that was remaining to stand suddenly dropped to the ground as a pressure that one had ever felt before suddenly slammed into them and kept them pinned. Even on the rooftop Sona and her peerage dropped to the ground, releasing the barrier unintentionally. Kokobile, though, had began to sweat, barely able to stand up from the weight of this man's demonic pressure. Rias and Akino, who were on the ground, both gulped as they felt the power coming from the mysterious man. It made their power look tiny in comparison. The only person Rias could think of that had power like this was her brother. Naruto outstretched his arms, and they all watched as fire formed all along his arms, and they all felt the temperature of the air suddenly go up drastically. So much so that in only a few moments they were sweating up a storm from the sudden heat. "Take this," Kokobile shouted as dozens of light swords flew through the air and sailed towards Naruto, who remained in his spot and looked at the attack lazily. "Boring," he muttered before he waved his hand gently, and everyone watched as thick an enormous wall of fire suddenly appeared in front of him and destroyed the enormous light. Words as if they were nothing. "Hadarubi," he whispered as small golden ball appeared behind Kokobile, with the man being none the wiser that they were even there. Then just as Kokobile was about to turn around they shot forward and each ball of fire hit one of his 10 wings and set them on fire. The screams of pain from Kokobile was enough to make the devils wince at their opponent had tried to shut it out. It looked and sounded so brutal that even when they tried to look away, their eyes just kept getting drawn back to seeing one of their natural enemies get crippled. Naruto looked across from his opponent as Kokobile struggled to stand up as whatever was left of his wings just dangled from his back, burnt far beyond recognition. And the fire was still burning them even when there was nothing left to burn. Golden fire flickered across his arm, and before anyone could even blink Naruto was gone, and had moved at such a great speed that the people that had their eyes open and paying attention only saw the movement of a yellow flash. Looking around they all heard Kokobile wince and cry out in more pain. Turning around they all now saw that Naruto was standing in front of the man with his head hidden with Kokobile's body as his left fist was buried deep into the fallen angel's stomach. Blood quickly shot out of the fallen angel's mouth from the powerful hit, and formed a strong-looking light sword in his hand. Swinging it, it looked like it was about to connect when they watched their savior lazily move his head to the side, showing just a little of his head before quickly hiding it again. He then grabbed Kokobile's wrist and with one tug he pulled it off and threw it to the side. "GGGHHHH!" Kokobile screamed before they watched Naruto grab him by the throat and threw him into the air. With Kokobile no longer having his wings, he just sailed through the air with a look of permanent fear etched onto his face. "Who is he?" Rias whispered as her beautiful eyes focused on their mysterious savior, and was looking at the back of his head that was now uncovered. He looked somewhat familiar, and the way he fought and completely destroyed Kokobile, she had to admit it thrilled her a little to see it. A Phoenix member perhaps? But I don't recall Golden Fire before. It's definitely not Riser and it's not Rival. Plus his hair is golden blonde. Beside her Issei was thinking the same thing given his history with Riser Phoenix. But watching this guy he could easily see this guy outclass Riser many times over, and it looked like he was just playing with Kokobile. They all then watched as Naruto cocked his fists back as fire engulfed his hand and aimed it towards the falling Kokobile, who was only now just beginning to make his way back towards the ground. "Heiken," was all anyone heard as they watched the biggest and most powerful pillar of fire any of them had ever seen just shoot out of Naruto's hand and sail towards Kokobile. The pillar was easily as wide as the occult research building and the power it had, and the roar it made was like nothing from this world. No, was they heard from Kokobile, who watched as the fire soared towards him before he was quickly silenced as it engulfed his entire body. The entire pillar of fire went high into the air and through the clouds. Everyone who was close to the battle zone slowly managed to put their hands over their eyes and faces, and shut their eyes tightly from the heat and from how bright the fire was. It remained there for about 15 seconds until eventually the pillar of fire went out as quick as it arrived. When it did, there was no sign of Kokobile. There was no body, no ashes, no nothing. He had just been completely wiped off the face of the planet by this mysterious person who had just saved them, and in a way shown just how powerless they truly were. Everyone who was watching, which was Rias, Issei, Aquino, Zenobia, Sona and her peerage, all stared at the man in sheer amazement for being able to defeat such a powerful fallen angel so quickly. While they may have been fighting him beforehand, it was not like they did much to even wound the fallen one. After a moment they watched the man turn his head towards them ever so slightly before he turned it around just as quickly and released the pressure of his demonic energy. Everyone who was down on the ground finally felt the weight lift from their bodies and could finally breathe easy again as the temperature began returning back to normal. Rias meanwhile had her eyes fixated on the man in front of them, and watched as he slowly began to walk away from them. Rias had to know who this person was. "Are you all alright?" she asked as she turned to face the down devils and their allies, who just dumbly nodded at her before Rias instructed Issei to go check on the other members, while Aquino walked over to stand by her king as they walked towards the red-haired savior. Next to her she watched as Sona and Sona's queen Tsubaki teleported beside them, the heir of Citri family having similar thoughts to her own. Seeing he was quickly leaving their line of sight, they ran over and quickly caught up with him, and watched as he stopped in his tracks. Naruto felt them getting closer towards him, and he had a feeling they would want answers. Rias because she had the Gremory curiosity, and Sona because she had the Citri brains like her parents. He didn't turn around, but the girls could see he was listening to them. "Thank you for saving us," Rias whispered to her, giving her a small bow that was followed by a bow from Aquino, Sona and Tsubaki. "But tell me, just who are you?" The four girls stood there together, all waiting for a response from their mysterious savior. After a moment of silence they heard him speak. "I'm a friend, so to speak. Someone asked me to step into this battle if I saw any of you were in danger of being killed. Since I could see that you couldn't handle Kokobile, I decided to step it." "So you're a devil?" Rias asked, as with him nodding. "Then what part do you come from? Are you a pure blood, a reincarnated, or a stray?" He let out a low chuckle at her question. "I think you already know the answer after watching." Rias nodded, thinking she knew as well, while Sona spoke up. "You're from the Phoenix family? It's strange because I don't recognize you, and I recognize most in the underworld." "Correct, Sochan. Your intelligence precedes you," he said, making her blush a little from his tone before she narrowed her eyes. "Don't call me that," she said, puffing her cheeks like a child. It just made him laugh even more. "Nah, aren't you adorable? I bet Cerea-chan has the best time teasing and playing with you, doesn't she?" he said, surprising the four of them. "You know my sister?" Sona asked, looking surprised. "I know all your siblings along with your parents," he spoke as his eyes turned to look at Rias just for a second, and said girl could see the calculative gaze he was giving her as if trying to make a decision about her. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little weary around her. He had not made his mind up on what to think about the Gremory girl just yet. "Then why have we never seen you if you know them, and why do you keep your face hidden from us? Surely you're not an ugly person," Aquino asked, giving him an eye smile with the others leaning in. He tapped his finger on his chin as he thought about his answer. While he could not see them, he knew they were looking very inquisitive. He had missed teasing people like this. It was so easy for him. "Let's just say I have been away from the underworld for a very long time, and I am rethinking a few things. And I don't show my face because I don't want to," he said as he laughed when they fell flat on their faces. A phoenix symbol appeared beneath him, indicating he was about to teleport away when Sona took a quick step forward. "Who are you? At least tell us your name." "You already know my name," Naruto said in a tone that surprised them, since it was all serious and business-like, just like their older siblings when they knew playtime was over. "My actions today left clues as to who I am. You will just need to put the pieces together." Naruto quickly disappeared and left the four girls behind, with Sona in particular going over what he said and putting her brain into overdrive. "We know who he is," she thought as Rias and Aquino began to walk away with disappointed looks on their faces while Tsubaki stuck close. "We know who he from the clues he left us." "What clues though?" "He is a member of the Phoenix family, that much is obvious. He looks older than us, but given how long devils live, he must be a century or two at least in age. He said he had not been to the underworld in many years, and he somehow knew Cerea and Rias's brother. And then there's the golden flames." Next to her, Tsubaki stood patiently before she watched in surprise when she saw her king's head suddenly shoot up and let out a rare but powerful gasp escape her mouth, as she threw her hands to cover it. "Golden fire," Sona whispered as her hands shook and looked back at the spot where Naruto had left. "Kuchu? What is it?" she asked, stepping closer to Sona and putting an arm on her shoulder. A little ways off, Naruto, who had only teleported a short distance away and was hidden behind a building, smiled at how quickly she had figured it out, and mentally praised the young devil for her intelligence. "Golden fire," she whispered again before looking towards Tsubaki. "We're going to the underworld. I need to see Cerea fall immediately. Chapter 2 completed. Chapter 3. Sona Citri was not one who usually let herself get all riled up and out of breath. She was always the quiet one, the one that made logical and decisive decisions and preferred to use tactics against an opponent than brute force and raw power. It was something she inherited from her family, the Citris. Being well known for their intelligence and their water-based powers, they had always been seen as one of the strongest families around, who also had the best medical care and facilities that the underworld had to offer. It stood to reason that Sona was brought up to carry herself like a lady and to always act proper when around people. So it surprised many when they saw Sona Citri sprinting as fast as she could down the familiar path that led to her family mansion, where she knew her sister was currently residing. Behind her, her queen Tsubaki was struggling to keep up and looked very red and out of breath as she tried to keep up with her king. "Open the gate," Sona called out as she neared her family estate, and watched as the guards manning the gate fumbled around for a few moments in surprise before they unlocked the gate and gave her entry towards her home. The Citri home was a large palace with 3 floors that resembled an old English royal palace. It had hundreds of rooms, with around 100 of said rooms being bedrooms for peerage members, servants and guests. Pushing the large wooden doors open, she ran into the large entrance hall with her shoes making clicking sounds against its stone floor. "Sona Kaisha, please wait for me," Tsubaki called, finally catching up to her king when she showed signs of slowing down. She stood beside her as she tried to catch her breath, while Sona took little notice, with her mind focused on one focus. "Sona?" a voice called, making the girl look to their left and see Lady Citri walking towards them, having just come from the living room with a book in her hand, and hearing them enter the room. "Lady Citri/Mother." The 2 girls bowed as Lady Citri simply waved it off and stood just in front of them. Lady Citri was a beautiful woman who looked a lot like her youngest daughter Sona, with her hair being shoulder length but was tied up in a bun and having the same violet eyes both daughters shared. Her glasses rested on the top of her head and wore a long, elegant blue dress with a white bow tied around the middle. "It's nice to have you home, my daughter," she said, hugging Sona. "But this is a surprise. I did not think you were returning home until the young devil's opening ceremony. What has brought about this visit?" she asked, with an inquisitive look firmly on her face. "I just need to find Wanisama." "It of the utmost importance, mother?" Sona asked. She really did not want to explain it more than she had to. It was for her sisters mainly. If her parents were there, then so be it. Lad Citri studied her daughter as if trying to figure what the sudden importance to see Cerea fall was, since she never normally went to her sister for anything. Cerea fall had a well-known streak of embarrassing her sister, but quickly she let it go as she held her arm out. "Your sister is in the study with your father. They are talking current affairs, I believe," she said as Sona quickly nodded and bowed to her mother before quickly making her way up the stairs and towards the study, with Tsubaki following behind her. Lady Citri watched them though before she decided to follow after them, her interest being piqued at her youngest current behavior. She knew it must have been important if Sona was actively trying to get to her sister. Usually it was the other way round. Sona quickly made her way up the large flight of stairs before stopping at the 2nd floor and traveled down the long hallway. She felt a little nervous and tense about the information she had for her sister. She really did not know how Cerea would react to what she was about to tell her. Eventually getting to the study, which was at the end of the hall, she pushed the door open and walked into a large room filled with books covering every wall, which went so high that it took up part of the 3rd floor as well. She had spent many days and nights sitting in this room and going from one book to another. She had definitely inherited the Citri family's want to learn. In the center of the room she saw who she was looking for, as her sister Cerea was sitting lazily on a chair with a lollipop in her mouth, looking all around the room as if trying to find something to keep her from dying of boredom. Anyone that looked at Cerea could easily see she was one of the most beautiful devils in existence, with her long dark hair that was tied up in 2 ponytails held together with 2 pink ribbons. Her eyes were violet just like Sona's and with smooth pearl-like skin. Her body, while sporting a very large bust, was small, almost childlike body, and only just hit the height of 5 feet 2 inches. Sona almost had to groan when she saw she was still wearing her magic girl costume, something she had more than one of. Though her appearance made her look unsuspecting, she was arguably the strongest female devil in the underworld, with very few people capable of fighting her on even ground. Sona steadily approached as Tsubaki and Lady Citri walked in behind her. As she got closer she saw Cerea lazily look her way before her eyes went wide and a joyful look appeared on her face. Before Sona could even take another step forward, her older sister was suddenly in front of her with arms and legs wrapped around her body and hugging her as tightly as possible. Cerea screamed aloud as she hugged her sister to death, and sparking irritation on Sona's face. "Why is it like this every time we see each other?" she thought as she tried to wriggle out of the grasp. "Cerea, let your sister breathe," Lady Citri admonished when she noticed Sona going a little blue in the face. Cerea let go before she huffed in annoyance and pouted towards her mother. "But Mom, I miss my Sotan," she said, making all those in the room shake their head at her childish personality. The whole family had gotten used to Cerea being very childlike in personality, and knew that despite their attempts she would not change any time soon. "My daughter," Lord Citri said as he got up from his seat next to where Cerea had been sitting and embraced his youngest. "Welcome home." Lord Citri was too similar in appearance with dark hair but dark blue eyes that neither of his children had inherited. He wore the normal royal-looking clothing that were dark blue and white. He stood about a head taller than their mother since he was tall for a devil. Thank you, father. I hope I did not come at an inconvenient time, but I needed to speak with Winnie-sama as soon as possible. Asotan loves me. I knew it. Seraphal cheered, jumping for joy. Seraphal stopped at this instant. Lady Citri chided, which only made Seraphal stick her tongue out at her, while Lord Citri sighed and rubbed his forehead. Behind Sona, Tsubaki's sweat dropped as she watched the Leviathan Satan argue with her mother, as a bonk on the head courtesy of Lady Citri just made the girl more active and did little to subdue her. Seraphal, please calm yourself while your sister tries to speak to us, Lord Citri said to his daughter, but said girl was too hyped that her beloved little sister wanted to speak to her personally. Seraphal had a very unhealthy obsession with her sister. She was a big-time siscon. Sona watched as Seraphal whined and complained to her parents, and began to grow irritated at how her sister was acting. She should have seen this coming and decided to just get the piece of information she had out there. We were attacked by fallen angel today and was almost killed. She started making her family stop talking and look at her. She watched as her mother looked concerned while her father and sister looked angry. Who dares attack my Asotan? Seraphal bellowed as the ground beneath them froze suddenly at Seraphal's anger. If there was anything that got Seraphal angry, it was if someone tried to hurt Sona. When did this happen, Sona? Explain everything to us, Lord Citri asked as Lady Citri checked her over, only now noticing how tired-looking Sona looked. Sona explained the ordeal that happened. How the swords of Excalibur had been taken, how she had teamed up with Rias Gremory and her peerage and 2 exorcists, and then the battle, a 10-winged fallen angel Kokobile. She could see her family were unhappy by the determined frown on her parents' faces, and the look of rage on Seraphal's faces. They have gone too far this time, Lord Citri spoke. Why is it whenever Aazel cannot control his fallen brethren, it's the devils that have to take care of the matter? It sounds like Kokobile was acting alone in this situation. Lady Citri spoke as her hands were on her daughter's shoulders. But still 2 heirs to 2 of the 34 families were almost killed tonight. This matter can't be left unattended, he said. I'll freeze anyone who tries to hurt my Sotan. Seraphal spoke as her hands shook. The room had gone noticeably colder thanks to Seraphal's ice magic. Seraphal, get a hold of Lord Lucifer and the other Satans. Something must be done about this. I won't have my youngest be put in another situation like that again. Sona watched her family were about to make call to the other families. No doubt Rias had already gone to her parents and brother about what happened, and they too would most likely be less than pleased about what happened this night. They never even let her finish the story about how they were saved. She guessed her safety and that she and Rias were almost killed as the stopping point. She watched as her family conversed, her mother looking worried and her father and sister looking serious. She knew it was moments like this that Seraphal stopped the childish persona and became the woman that helped stop the devil's civil war. There's more to the story, she said, but her family hardly noticed as they were magically speaking with other people. A frown appeared on her face before she took a deep breath and said what she came there to say. I think we were saved by Naruto Phoenix. And just like she thought, everything just stopped. Her father, who was mid-sentence with Lord Gremory via communication seal, stopped mid-sentence, and she watched him slowly turn his head towards her. Her mother had a similar look on her face as she had to stop her glasses from falling from her head. Seraphal, on the other hand, was difficult to make out. She had froze completely and her hair was shadowing over her eyes, making it difficult for her to tell what she was thinking. She did though hear a short gasp when she heard the name. What did you say? Lady Citri asked after a moment of silence as her family's attention was completely on her. I said I think Naruto Phoenix was the one that saved us. At least I'm about 90% sure it was him, she said as Tsubaki from behind her looked a little confused. Who is Naruto Phoenix? She asked, since she was not familiar with the name other than the last name Phoenix. Lady Citri turned to look at her. Naruto Phoenix is the eldest son of Lord and Lady Phoenix, and is one of the 5 heroes of the Devil's Civil War. He was a comrade of Seraphal's back during the war, and had a big part in ending it. He disappeared 200 years ago, and has not been seen since. Not even his family know of his whereabouts. Tsubaki nodded her head as a thoughtful look appeared on her face. After a moment she gasped when she realized who they were speaking about. The golden supernova of the underworld? That's who saved us? She asked Sona, who nodded. That is one of the many nicknames he has earned thanks to his powers and skills. The other being the Yellow Flash and the true immortal Phoenix. To think he is actually still alive, Lord Citri muttered. He has been gone for so long I thought he would have died by now. There are all kinds of nasties living in the human world. Beside him his wife nodded, knowing full well what kind of creatures and other entries lived in the human world. Are you positive it was him, Sona? Are you 100% sure it was him? He looked like a Phoenix member. Blonde hair, tank skin and the blue eyes. His hair was a different shade though form risers. It was more of a golden color, and then his fire was gold as well. He destroyed Kokobile so quickly that it looked like he was not even trying. Her parents nodded and looked at one another. It defiantly Naruchan, Lady Citri said. He is the only devil I know who can use gold fire. We must let the Phoenix family know immediately. They will want to know about their son, especially Layla, Lord Citri mentioned with Lady Citri nodding and placing a hand on her heart as she thought of her friend. She had seen the effect his disappearance had on the blonde woman, and even today she could see that the little spark that went out when he left never fully came back. She had locked herself away for a long time and let the bitterness towards the Gremory and Graia build up over the years. It because of this that her social group was never fully complete anymore. She hoped this was a sign that it would change very soon. Naruto, they all heard as Sona, Tsubaki, Lady and Lord Citri all turned to look at Cerea and were all a little surprised when they saw the look of desperation that was on her face, as well giving Sona a pleading look. Was he okay, little sister? Did he seem well? She asked as she grabbed her sister's hands in her own and asked in a polite, shaky but serious tone. It took Sona by surprise, since again it was not often she saw this kind of side of her sister. Her eyes drifted over towards her parents, and she saw Lady Citri looking at Cerea sadly while Lord Citri had snaked a hand onto his eldest shoulder, giving it a light squeeze. What am I missing? Sona thought before turning back to Cerea. He seemed fine. He seemed to recognize Rias and I, and commented that I inherited the Citri brains. He said he was a friend of his Cerea, and that he couldn't let his friend's baby sister get hurt. Watching Cerea, Sona watched as her expression changed and a watery smile and glazed over eyes took over, and she let out a small laugh. Her parents let a small smile appear on their faces too, and she felt her sister give her hands a tight squeeze and even gently kiss her hands before letting them go. Thank you, Cerea whispered to Sona. All Sona could so as nod back dumbly before they watched Cerea walk out of the room with a beautiful smile that showed just how happy she was. He's back. Phoenix Estate. Riser Phoenix and Rival Phoenix sat on the large hallway stairs as they watched their mother ordering many of their peerage members together, and sending them to the human world. The moment the Citri had called them, their mother had not stopped for a second, as tears of joy fell down her face as she finally got the first real official news that the Citri and Gremory heir had seen and had been saved by her son. They watched as she ordered them around and watched as she briefly spoke with their father before he left to his office, no doubt going to see if he can get more people to help them look for their older brother. All this fuss for nothing, Riser muttered as he glared at the ceiling while Ravel played with the hem of her dress. It's just ridiculous. Don't say such thing, brother. It might mean our big brother will come home, she said, but frowned slightly when she heard him scoff. Why should I care? It's not like I have even met him. He up and leaves long before either of us were even born. He leaves, and after 200 years, and the whole place is in hysterics the moment they heard there has been a sighting. Mother won't like you talking like that about him, Ravel told him, but she knew he most likely was not listening to her. Her brother had been in this mood ever since he lost against the Secretary Issei Haidu in a match during the official engagement. He got defeated to the point where his healing was not going to help him, and had to stay in a bed for 2 days. He thought it was a farce since he won the rating game, and yet because the Lucifer being the older brother of his former fiancée, he bent the rules and found a way for them to try again. It pissed him off so much that he began to understand a little why his mother had grown to dislike the Gremory family. If his so-called older brother was so powerful, then why did he not stick around and become a Satan like the other 4 heroes? Then the Phoenix family would have been as powerful as them, and would have had a Satan on their side when this farce was performed. Though now he did have a fear over dragons that his brother Rival loved to tease and would make dragon-like shadow puppets on the walls whenever he got the chance. I'm out of here. No point in sticking around here when much better option lay ahead, he said before making his way to his room up the stairs. Ravel knew what that meant. He wasn't actually going to bed but instead was going to bring Yubelina into his bed. She knew this because she could hear them from time to time at night with their bedroom being close together. Plus when he got angry or annoyed, Yubelina seemed to be the only one who could get him out of it. Ravel huffed a little. Her brother was still being a bit of an ass, and she knew her father had hoped his defeat would humble him in some way since Issei Haidu was only a low-class devil. She guessed not. At least I'm not his bishop anymore, she whispered before noticing her mother coming towards her looking a little flustered. Daughter, where is your brother? I was hoping to get his peerage to help with the search. Layla Phoenix sounded a little desperate by the tone of her voice. Her need to find her son had now gone up drastically, almost to the amount when Naruto had first left. She did not want to lose the chance of bringing her son home. He's gone to bed. He said he was feeling tired and had no interest in joining the search. Ravel shuddered at the dark look appear on her mother's face and noticed her fists shake slightly at her side before taking a calming breath. Riser had that effect on his mother. Everyone in the family was aware that Riser never had any nice or good to say about their eldest brother. As far as he was concerned, the moment he left he gave up the right to be a member of the Phoenix family. He never fully understood why his parents, especially his mother, was obsessed with finding him. In some way she knew that he hoped Naruto never came back. Riser and Layla had gotten into many arguments when it came to the eldest Phoenix. Whenever he badmouthed their brother, it was their mother, father or rival that would put him in his place. It always got more heated with Layla since many were aware that Naruto was the pride and joy of the Phoenix family. That boy, Layla said, clicking her tongue through her teeth before she huffed a little in annoyance, and put it in the back of her mind. Ravel, honey, do you think you could lend us a hand? She asked politely and keeping her frustration towards her third son in check for now. She would be having words with him later one. Ravel thought it over briefly before shrugging her shoulders and giving her mother a little nod, which in return got a big smile from Layla and a small kiss on the forehead. Your brother Ravel will be here in a few moments. You can head off with him, she said as Ravel just nodded again before watching her mother leave and head towards her father's study. Ravel sat quietly on the stairs as she waited for her older brother. She did not have to wait long before the phoenix symbol appeared and a gush of fire burst out from around it. She rolled her eyes since Ravel liked to make a flashy entrance just like Riser. Her brother Ravel looked like an older version of Riser and was about an inch taller in height. With blonde hair and dark blue eyes like their father along with the usual tan skin, the only thing that put him apart from Riser was that he wore dark blue noble clothing. She watched for a moment as her brother appeared in the room before she stepped forward and hugged Ravel, who smiled at seeing her. Little sister, he said politely as she gave him a small smile. Mother said to go and help you look. I hope that's okay, she asked as Ravel let out a small chuckle. I would be happy to have the extra help. No Riser, I take it? He asked, looking around for his younger brother but saw her shake his head. He said he had no desire to help, she said, and watched as Ravel clicked his tongue just like Layla had done moments ago. Our brother can be a bit of a baka, can't he? He said, making her nodded profusely before looking around and behind him. Where is Sister Conan? She asked as she looked for her sister-in-law and brother-wife. Her brother's wife married into the family 50 years ago from the Abaddon family. She was born out of wedlock from the head of the Abaddon family and left when she was of age and became a maid for the Phoenix household. For Ravel it was love at first sight. They married soon after and welcomed their daughter into the world 5 years ago. She is at home with Reina. She has been feeling a little under the weather, so she is going to stay at home while we look, he told her as Ravel nodded. Reina was Ravel's 5-year-old daughter. Well, we will let mother deal with him. I believe we need to go and find our doofus of an older brother and bring him home, huh? He said politely, nudging Ravel, who laughed at the tone he spoke in before they both disappeared in the Phoenix Seal. Gremory estate. Graia sighed as she just finished her rounds for the day and headed back towards the bedroom she shared with her husband. She had just put Millicast to sleep and was looking forward to have her body soaked in a nice warm bath. Entering their room, she quickly undressed and folded her clothes into neat piles while doing the same for her husband's clothes, which were left out on the floor. She turned the tap on and added the necessary bubbles as she prepared herself for her bath. She undid her braids and let her silver hair fall natural to the ground, stopping just above her knees. As the water ran, she just stood and waited completely naked while dipping her foot in the water to check the temperature, a routine she had done for as long as she could remember. She sighed happily as the temperature that hit the soles of her feet and gently submerged herself. 5 minutes later she lay comfortably in the bubble-soaked bath as a delightful hum came from her lips, enjoying the warm water soak her skin as she washed her arms with the soapy water. As she soaked in the warm bath, her minds traveled to the past years that she had spent with the Gremory family, who she could now call her own. They had been welcoming towards her, and the marriage between her and Cerea had been a godsend to not only the family but the devil community. She remembered that day well and was a fond memory that she would always remember. That and the birth of her son, Graia Lucifuge, never had much to regret. She was a by-the-book devil who followed the rules and only disobeyed them when she believed it was harmful to other and people she loved. She didn't regret leaving the Lucifuge family since it gave her a better life in the end. She didn't regret being the maid of the Gremory family because she got to see her family every single day and help them in any way that she could. She didn't regret marrying her goofball of a husband even if he acted like a child most of the time. But the one thing she did regret and still haunted her to this day was the way her relationship ended with Naruto Phoenix, her first love. She had never intended for him to find out the way he did, and the look on his face when he saw Cerea and her together was just too painful to put into words. The heartbreak and the rage that followed was enough for her to shake at the mere memory. The affair between herself and Cerea was not planned in any way. It was meant to have been a one-time thing that they would both forget about, but neither did. And that grew into love. The fact that she and his best friend had betrayed him in the bed that she and Naruto had shared for so long and made love in many times always made her guilty, and the home that he had built just for them that they could one day build a family in, that had been burnt down in the wake of his rage when he discovered their betrayal. While she thought back, the idea of a family with Naruto had always tempted her and made her smile. The idea of having little blonde-haired and silver-eyed sons and silver-haired and blue-eyed daughter were enough to make her heart soar. While they were nice thoughts inwardly, she had always felt as if a part of her knew it would never happen. She still remembered one of the last intimate moments she shared with Naruto. It had been similar to how she was now. She had been lying in the bath when he came in and gave her one of the famous smiles of his that were enough to make most women quake at the knees. He had then taken her foot and then washed all up her body with the sponge before she had forced him into the tub and made love to one another. Naruto had always been an amazing lover. It was only the next week that it had all fallen apart. It was something she would always regret for the rest of her life. She hated that she strung him along like she did, but she couldn't deny her heart any longer. It wasn't fair on her or on Naruto. She loved Naruto, but she was in love with Cerea. Her betrayal towards him was almost legendary in itself, and was kept very quiet among the 34 pillars, with only the lords, ladies and heirs at the time being aware of what happened. Even her sister-in-law Rias did not know the story, and for that she was thankful. The truth about what happened between the three of them was kept very secretive, and only a select few knew the real story. If word had gotten out that the strongest queen and the current Lucifer had betrayed their closest friend and love in such a way, it would have had disastrous effects on their families and on stability of the underworld as a whole. She did not want to be sent cold looks from the red-haired girl, or the younger devils like she got from Cerea and Lady Phoenix. She had once been very close to both of them, but now Lady Phoenix despised her, and with good reason, while Cerea would only tolerate her when at meetings or social gatherings. At meeting for the Four Satans, Cerea had made sure Cerea knew not to bring Graia along. She winced at the thought of Cerea as her left hand traced along a scar along the left side of her stomach, one she received when she made the mistake of challenging Cerea for the title of Leviathan. The two had been on equal footing with one enough in terms of experience and power, but Cerea's rage at what they did to Naruto made her unleash all her rage and frustration onto her. While narrowly being defeated, it did send Graia to the hospital for 2 weeks, and had gained the scar in the process. Cerea had been angry towards Cerea, but one mention of Naruto's name, and he backed off. Despite having defeated Naruto by the tiniest of margins, they all knew that Cerea secretly feared Naruto. The Phoenix's rage was not something he ever wanted to experience again, and he could have sworn that their battle took many years off his life. It did, however, give him a large burn-like scar permanently etched onto his chest, which remained a symbol of Naruto rage and his deceit. Their group that once consisted of 6 friends was now so broken she did not see any chance of it being put together. Naruto had been the glue of that group, and without him it fell apart very quickly. Cerea became more childlike and bitter towards them. Ajuka became a recluse who barely left his lab. Falbium became so lazy that the military of the underworld barely did more than odd chores, and Cerea would become more playful and silly. Graia would be honest and would say that she missed him. She wanted to hold Naruto again and say how sorry she was. She wanted him to be her friend again. She wanted him to meet her son. If not for Naruto Phoenix, then she would not be with them right now. She wanted to make amends, but she just didn't know where to start. Breaking out of her thoughts, she watched as the door to the bathroom creaked open and her husband peered his head through the door and gave her a smile. She happily smiled back and motioned for him to come closer, but frowned and sat up when she saw he looked almost nervous. Cerea never got nervous. Not unless it was something she was scolding him about. Something happened. There has been a development in Ko, he said as he walked in and sat next to the bathtub with his back to her. This now had her worried, hoping nothing happened to Rias or her cute little peerage. She listened to him explain what happened with Kokabeel and the holy swords and how they had been stolen, and was amused at how little security the church had put on those weapons. When hearing that Rias and Sona may have been killed tonight, she breathed a little harder as her anger towards fallen angels grew. Her opinion on fallen angels were not very high, and she never expected much good to come from them. How did they survive the encounter? I don't recall you sending anyone to help them, she asked, a little confused at how Rias and her peerage had survived an encounter with a 10-winged fallen angel. We're not sure whether it's true yet, but Sona has a very strong suspicion who it was and matched the description of a certain someone we used to know. Lord and Lady Cerea along with Cerea have said her claim is correct from the description given. He watched her face become confused, trying to wrap her head around what he was telling her. He got her attention back though. He's come back, Graia-chan, he said, taking her hands into his. After 200 years he finally made an appearance. And just like that she knew who he was speaking about as her free hand flew to her mouth and let her eyes widen and moist over. Graia was not one to show her emotions to just anyone or to any situation, but the information given to her right now was too much to keep up that facade. Do they know where he currently is? She asked shakily, and was quickly saddened when she saw her husband shake his head. He disappeared the moment he defeated Kokabeel. Apparently he had brief words with Sona and Rias, but quickly left. Sona figured out who he was, but Rias is oblivious right now, he told her before noticing his wife's expression. He decided it was best to give her some space and left the room to let her continue bathing. Graia stayed silent for the rest of the night, and sat in the bath well after the heat from it had gone. She stared up at the ceiling for what felt like hours, mulling over this new information. Inside, and what she knew was her herd, she ached. She loved Cerea, but even now she knew a little part of her heart was always going to love the legendary Phoenix hero that made this life possible for her. With Naruto walking into his magical tent, Naruto quickly made his way inside only to stop immediately with his eyebrow beginning to twitch in annoyance. The whole place was a mess. Pillows were thrown all over the floor, plates were left out on the tables, dish rags and clothes hung on the backs of chairs, and he could have sworn he could smell a mixture of catnip and perfume lingering in the air. I leave for just a day and this happens? He spoke as he began walking forward, only to stop when a figure appeared to his right and lunged at him. Sighing because she kept trying this, he simply moved out of the way and caught onto the figure's bare ankle before dangling them upside down. Must we keep doing this, Kuroka-chan? Said woman grinned playfully at him as he dangled her upside down, and had the decency to look away when her black kimono fell down revealing her naked body. Kuroka was extremely beautiful and easily one of the most beautiful women he had the pleasure of knowing. Her long flowing midnight black hair went all the way down to her lower back, and her amber eyes bordered on being gold with cat-like pupils. Her black cat ears and 2 tails were displayed proudly and twitched every couple of moments. Her dress consisted of an elegant black kimono, and walked around barefoot with a pretty-looking silver anklet wrapped around her ankle. though wore no underwear underneath her kimono because she openly said to him many times that it felt too constricting. But it's so fun, Naia, she said, patting her cheek as Naruto gently lowered her to the ground when he saw her robe was slipping sewn. You're no fun, Naia, she complained as she sat up. I'm sure it is to you, but to me it shows you're a little clingy. To think the black stray cat was really a lovely house cat that wanted some attention, he said, noticing her pout, and huffed in annoyance. She stood up and walked over to one of the couches where she lay on her front, and dangled her feet in the air as she watched Naruto change clothes. After meeting her a few days ago, he had gotten to know the woman pretty well since she had nowhere else to go. She was a nekashu, a very rare and endangered special of Nikomata, and was a reincarnated devil with 2 bishop pieces. She was on the run because she killed her king after finding out what he planned to do to her younger sister, who she unfortunately had to leave behind after becoming a wanted criminal. He was a little impressed that she earned a SS class status since very few strays had ever managed to do so. She was hesitant at first to stay and did try to attack him briefly, but she found herself quickly subdued. After finding out who he was, she realized that despite being strong in her own right, next to Naruto, she was greatly outclassed on multiple levels. But then Naruto told her he cared little for the person she killed, stating he was a bastard from the few times he met him, and he probably would have done the same thing if his siblings were threatened like that. He told her he was no going to hand her in by any means, but told her not to attack him again because he would not be as merciful next time. Kuroka was taken back a little, but she could see he was being truthful. With nowhere to go, she asked if she could stay with him, and Naruto saw nothing wrong in it. It would be quite nice to have a travel partner. Kuroka knew she would be safe with the blonde devil. I think I saw your little sister earlier, by the way, he said, getting Kuroka's attention. Amber eyes, small in stature, white hair? That's my Chiron. She is well, Naya? She seems so. She was unconscious when I saw her, but physically she seemed healthy and had friends with her, he told her, as he explained what had happened. That's good, she mumbled. And the fallen angel was quickly taken care of? She asked as she watched Naruto as he walked over towards her wearing a pair of sweats and a black vest, revealing his muscular frame, which if he was paying any attention made her blush a little. He is long dead. I don't see anyone surviving being turned into ash particles, he said as Kuroka nodded and was inwardly happy that her little sister was safe. As he went to sit down on one of the opposite couches, he stopped when Kuroka took his hand and guided him onto her couch. As she sat up, she pushed him onto his front before straddling his back. When she saw him looking at her with a raised eyebrow, she giggled. I'm giving you a massage. It's the least I can do after all for saving my sister and giving me a place to crash. Nya. I have very magical fingertips, she whispered into his ear, making her hot breath tickle against his skin. Knowing there was no point in fighting this, he shrugged and lay his head down as he felt Kuroka's hands rub against his shoulders and push down against the muscles. He had to admit she was not lying with the magical fingers as she sent waves of pleasure and ease through his body as she massaged each muscle extensively. He had been given massages before from Yasaka, but Kuroka had the magical touch. His whole body was quickly feeling at ease and didn't feel like moving anytime soon. Where did you learn this? He asked as he put his hands beneath his chin as she worked on the middle of his back. The response he got was a little giggle. Being on the run for 7 years has allowed me to pick up certain skills along the way. Massages is a great way to pickpocket people and gain some extra cash as well as knock them out with the right touches. Plus it's handy that I am natural at it, she told him as she just watched him nod. She wondered if he was even listening. On top of him, Kuroka was smiling coyly at the reaction she was getting from the powerful devil. She found out very quickly that he was a powerful person, and Ti helped that he was so nice and giving on top of that. His power felt almost endless, and it inwardly thrilled her. She was an attractive female who desires to be taken by a powerful male. If she could lay with this man, then she might have the chance to complete what she had always desired. Being a little daring, she leaned down and pressed her large bust against his back and breathed hot air into his ear that made his neck hair stand on end. Is there any other way I could say thank you for looking after me? She whispered sexily in his ear and putting her attractiveness to good use. She firmly believed that if you had it, then you should flaunt it. Before she could say anything else, though, she suddenly felt her hair fall freely down her back and a sudden lightness hit her head. Her hands trailed up to her hair and gasped when she felt her headband was not there anymore but was instead in the hands of the man beneath her. This is a very beautiful headband, he said, looking it over. It shows true craftsmanship. Where did you get it? And my mother gave it to me when I was a little girl. Just before she passed, she answered with the gobsmacked look not leaving her face. He then placed it gently back in her hair. It suits you, but you should let your hair down more. It's a shame to let such beautiful hair stay pinned up all the time, he said, giving her a smile that was now making her feel flushed. Oh God, what's happening to me? She thought as she watched Naruto turn back around and pick up a communication seal slip that had began glowing for the last few seconds. Answering it, she saw a beautiful blonde woman with fox ears on her head, and from what she could tell she was looking similar to her with a flushed appearance on her face. Naruto, I need you now. They both got the message loud and clear as she watched Naruto remove himself from beneath her. He told her would most likely see her tomorrow or maybe even in a few days before he left quickly, going to keep his beautiful, and by the looks of it very horny kitsune woman satisfied. He almost forgot it was the kitsune mating season. He was in for a hell of a night. As he left and told her to stay out of trouble, Kuroka just sat there in silence with her eyes still wide as her hands clutched her headband. At that moment Naruto not only gained her trust and loyalty, but he also just gained her love and heart. Chapter 3 completed. Chapter 4. The blonde phoenix sighed as he stared up at his tent ceiling as he mulled over the position that kept waking up in for the last week. Since coming back from his session with Yasaka the Nekasha that he had been letting bunk with him for the last 2 weeks, and become extremely clingy and needy. When he came back he was greeted to a very naked Kuroka lying in his bed, waiting for him to return with a very sly and sexy look on her face. It didn't take a genius what she wants from him, but he turned her down on the account that they had barely known one another, but it didn't stop her advances. Oh, was he tempted, but 200 years of learning restraint had finally paid off. So during their free time he got to know Kuroka and learn as much about her as she wanted to let out. Her favorite color was amber. Her favorite food was sushi, which was not much of a surprise. She loved wearing kimonos but hated wearing underwear since it made her feel too constricted. She was 23 years old and even admitted to him that despite her flirty personality and constant sexual teasing, she was still in fact a virgin and was waiting for that special someone. Now though he was lying in his bed with a pair of silky smooth arms wrapped around his chest with 2 extremely soft and bouncy mounds pressed hard against his chest. They were so warm he really wanted to just stick his head there and let them lull him to sleep. Soft purrs came from the black-haired girl as she gently slept, letting soft and cute snores come from her when she wrinkled her face. Like any cat she seemed to gravitate towards anything that was warm. Given he was a phoenix, it didn't take long until she kept creeping into his bed every night. He tried to wriggle out of her grasp, but her arms quickly locked around his chest, stopping him from moving as well as moving her face up his body and settling in the crook of his neck. Every morning, he whined in his head before he shivered when Kuroka unconsciously licked his neck with her tongue. His restraint was only so big, and if she kept up these actions it would definitely end with him taking her right then and there. She doesn't make this easy, he muttered before grabbing one of the large pillows his head rested on, and slowly managed to switch himself with the pillow. He watched her face scrunch up and hold onto the pillow tighter, already noticing the switch, and was not happy with the loss of her heat source. She moaned in her sleep in annoyance while Naruto took the moment to shower and get dressed. Thanks to heating ruins he placed on the water supply, it always came out warm from the tap or shower head. A renewal ruin was also placed on the tank so he never ran out of water. That would have sucked big time. Hygiene was always something he was taught to care greatly for, plus girls loved men who smelled nice. Once he was changed into his day clothing he went to the kitchen and began making breakfast. In 200 years of being on his own, things like cooking and cleaning was something he desperately needed to learn, especially cooking. While he could make a decent meal and was very good with the basic stuff, the complicated the meal to more time and tries he would have to put in. For this morning he stuck with a simple English breakfast with scrambled egg, toast, bits of bacon, tomato and sausages. On the side was a juicer where he would make freshly squeezed orange justice. There was nothing better than eating something that you made from scratch. As he whistled a tune and tapped his foot on the ground as he made breakfast, he was not surprised to feel long slender arms wrap around his waist, and for a soft cheek to rub against the arch of his back. "Good morning, Niall. Come back to bed with me. I want my heat source back," she purred as low purring reached his ears. Turning his head he saw she was only being covered in the bed covers with her cat ears and tails out proudly and twitching every couple of seconds. "Sorry Kuro-chan, but I have business to take care of today." "Oh, business, Hunya?" she asked as her hands roamed all over his chest. They slid down his front as she felt his muscles and admired amazing physique that he had earned thanks to healthy living, plenty of training and the odd tumble in the bed. Though when her hands began traveling a little too south for his liking, he quickly playfully swatted them away much to her disappointment. She had tried to see his member over the last week, but somehow he kept covering it up at the last moment, or turning to face the other way just when she got close. Even when he was asleep he somehow kept avoiding her gaze. "Maybe I can come with you on this business? I can wear a sexy business suit. I promise you will like it, nya." She thought she had him when Kuroka saw him lean down at her and faced her with his face only a few inches from her face. Then he saw her lean in and Kuroka for the first time in a long time felt a blush beginning to form. She closed her eyes and puckered her lips as she prepared to feel his lips crash not her. But instead Naruto's finger was placed on her lips. "Maybe next time, Kuro-chan." She saw the playful grin appear on his face as her blush was revealed on her face. She pouted and whipped around to face the opposite direction as her arms crossed below her breasts, and tried to look annoyed and him leading her on like that. They sat in silence for about 10 minutes as Naruto laid breakfast put in front of them, getting a small thankful from Kuroka as she began to eat. For a girl with a body like Kuroka's, she sure ate a lot. Once he had finished and washed his plate he went to exit the kitchen and was preparing to leave. "And what is it that's so important that I can't go with you?" she finally asked, still with her arms crossed as she turned to look at him. She saw him glance in her direction as he put his shoes on. "I'm visiting an old friend today, and if you came with me I could not guarantee that you would return unscathed," he said serious as he left the kitchen and grabbed a jacket. "While I admit we have not known each other very long, where I am going could put you at risk as you currently are," he said, making her realize he was talking about the underworld. "I kinda like you, Kuroka, and I will admit I have enjoyed having you around lately. So you have to understand that if I say it's too dangerous for you then I mean it as the truth. Kuroka stood watching him frowning. He just doesn't want me to get hurt, she thought before she quick-paced over to him. A week with Naruto had made her see the different sides to him. The soft, kind, gentle and goofy side that he mostly showed. There was also the serious and stern side when business or things along that line came up. Then she knew by reputation the third side to him was the ruthless and merciless warrior that was responsible for defeating the old devil faction. He was both a complicated and simple person, and he intrigued her to no end. She pressed herself against him and looked up at him with her big amber eyes staring directly into his blue ones. But you will come back safe, right? She asked with a soft voice that Naruto recognized as the real Kuroka, when she was not trying to flirt or tease her way into getting something. I'll come back. I promise, he said and chuckled when she stuck out her pinky finger. He interlaced it with his own and then watched as she leaned up and placed a soft kiss on his cheek as her cheek went a little red before she disappeared to finish breakfast. Naruto stood there for a moment wondering just what had gotten into Kuroka this past week before deciding to put it to the back of his mind for now. Kuroka meanwhile ate her breakfast, wondering when the right time was to tell him that she was his now and until forever. Underworld. Stepping out of the phoenix magic symbol, Naruto quickly found himself standing outside of a large castle that stood out in the middle of nowhere with no signs of life anywhere within the vicinity. Of course he chose somewhere so recluse, he said to himself as he walked forward and showing great strength, pushed the large wooden doors open and began walking inside. The great hallway was lit up like a Christmas tree. Multiple doors lay on each side of the wall with a large elevator right at the end with metal doors. Beside the elevator doors he saw an intercom system. Walking forward he pushed for the elevator doors to open but was not surprised when they refused to open and he heard a voice call out from the intercom system. Who is it? I'm too busy to see anyone right now. Make an appointment or something. A dreary voice called, making his eyes roll and shake his head. He leaned forward and pushed the button of the intercom. Hey dumbass. You either let me down to that home you call a lab or I will burn this place to the ground and roast your ass. He was not surprised that he got silence for the next 30 seconds before the voice spoke again. Naruto? Looking up to the right corner of the ceiling he saw a video camera moving in his direction and stop when it landed on him. He gave the camera a wave and it was only a second later that the elevator activated and the metal doors opened. A minute later Naruto watched as the elevator doors opened and he found himself staring at a large warehouse-like room underneath castle with countless test tubes, crash test dummies, machines, tanks, giant chess pieces and all kind of weird stuff that he would expect from the man he was visiting. Walking forward it did not take Naruto long to find the person he was looking for. Said person has a very powerful and recognizable signature. Ajuka, Naruto said, letting a small smirk appear on his face as the man in question turned around and lifted his welding visor to reveal a young man the same age as Naruto. Ajuka was a handsome man with short black messy hair and brown eyes with a light complex. While other devils would have worn royal-looking robes specifically designed for pure blood devils, Ajuka stuck with a tattered pair of jeans and a greased shirt that had rips going up and down the sleeves. Naruto Phoenix. It's about damn time you came back, the said standing up, standing at a similar height to Naruto as the two grasped hands before going in for a one-armed hug, patting the other's back as they did. While he was not as close to Ajuka as he had been with Cerea or Cerea, he was still a greatly valued friend and comrade who had each other's back during the Devil's Civil War. He was the same age as Naruto and Cerea, and had been part of their group of friends for as long as he could remember. Well, I guess I had to come home eventually, he said, taking a step back and looking around the place. I guess I should not be surprised that the current Beelzebub has not changed all that much. You're back for good now. I can name a lot of people that would be very happy with that. Not quite home yet, Naruto said, watching Ajuka's face fall slightly. I'll be coming home soon, but let's just say I have a few loose ends I need to tie up first. I'm actually here because I need something from you. Ajuka's eyes shot up in surprise. The last he checked, Naruto never asked much from anyone. Normally it was the other way round. Looking at Naruto curiously, he asked, what did you have in mind? Naruto pointed to the desk that Ajuka was working on and picked up a king chess piece as he held it out in his hand and examined. That alone gave Ajuka an idea of what his old friend had planned. Well, I have heard about your creation of the evil piece system back when it was first made. Hats off to you for that one, by the way, he said as Ajuka mock bowed and motioned for him to continue. I am coming to ask if you wouldn't mind creating a set of evil pieces for me? You serious? Ajuka asked skeptically before Naruto nodded. Why now of all times? Let's just say I have met some people in my time away and I would like to have them around in the underworld with me when I come back. Ajuka just stared at him for a moment before he shrugged. Sure, why not, he said before motioning for him to follow him through the lab. I actually already have a set created you for back when they first created. The first sets I ever made were mine, yours, Cerea's, Falbium and Cerea's. You're the last of the 5 of us to come and collect his set. Naruto just nodded as they arrived at some kind of large locker system spread across an entire part of the underground lab. They had letters on separate categories of the lockers with the first letter from the surname. PPP, here we are, Ajuka said as his wings appeared out of his back and he flew up into the air. Naruto watched him open one of the lockers and take out a small chessboard which he could see had the phoenix symbol on the front of it. He watched Ajuka blow the dust of the top of the evil piece set, and showing just how long it had been there. He then came back to the ground. You want me to explain how the system works? He asked as Naruto nodded. Though he had a brief understanding, it would be better to hear it from the guy that made it, and was the reason the devil population had managed to increase over the years. Each piece has a corresponding value, and these values are used to determine which piece may be used to reincarnate someone. Their strengths, talents, and skills play a large role in determining their value. Different evil pieces cannot be used together. Evil pieces can also be exchanged between top-class devils with peerage, and only a high-class devil and above can have one. I'm safe then, Naruto joked as Ajuka rolled his eyes. You will take the king piece, he said, showing Naruto a golden-colored king chess piece. You have 1 queen, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, 2 knight and 8 pawns. Though the more powerful the person is, the more pieces they take up. Rooks are worth 5 pawn pieces, knights are worth 3 as are bishops, and the queen piece is worth 9. Naruto nodded as Ajuka handed over the chessboard, and Naruto looked over at the evil pieces that were tucked away inside the board. To use them, just sit them down and say the reincarnation words and then press it against their chest. Sounds easy enough, Naruto said as a thought came across him when his thoughts went to a certain stray cat. Hypothetically, would it be possible to bring in a person who already has an evil piece within them but is no longer part of a peerage? #2. Ajuka looked at him oddly. It sounds like you're talking about a stray devil? He asked, but Naruto just looked at him, waiting for an answer. Ajuka sighed before scratching the back of his head. It's possible if the correct situation is met. If said reincarnated devil has been released from the peerage, then it is possible. Another way would be to just trade the pieces that it took to reincarnate the person and give your free pieces to the high-class devil. What if that devil was dead? He asked in all seriousness, and saw Ajuka narrow his eyes slightly and look his friend over. It was an odd thing for him to ask, but he answered it anyway. If the devil died, then the piece or pieces will still be active within their body. However, if another devil wants them to join the peerage, then all they would need to do is do the natural ritual. The old pieces will be replaced with the new pieces. As long as they're not part of a major house, then it shouldn't be a problem. Naruto nodded and clutched the evil piece set closely. That was what he had hoped, and it would not be as much as a problem as he thought. The only problem he could see would be the family of the devil that she killed wanting her head. But if that matter appeared, then he would sort it out. The devil she was linked to was a piece of shit as far as he was concerned, and the underworld was better off without him. You staying here long, or are you leaving right away? I know of some people that would very much like to see you. Naruto nodded. I will be coming back to the underworld properly within the next week or so. I'll see them then. If I know Cerea as well as I do, she will no doubt find out the moment I step back on Phoenix soil. Ajuka nodded, but out his hands in his pockets. I was actually talking about them, he said, with Naruto now narrowing his eyes, knowing full well who he was talking about. I have nothing I want to say to those 2 backstabbers, he said as Ajuka put his hands out in his defense. Hey, I know what they did was bad, but they are sorry, and I know they want you to know that. Graia especially, he told him, but Naruto just continued to glare at him. Did you know they named you Milikus's godfather? That made the glare Naruto was giving him to soften, but he shook his head. It doesn't matter. If either of those 2 dare to try and speak with me and tell me how sorry they are, then they can kiss my ass for all I care. Ajuka gulped as he felt the temperature go up slightly. I have no hate for their kid, and I'm sure he is a sweet boy, but I want nothing to do with that family. Not again. Ajuka nodded and thought it was best to let the topic rest now. He had seen Naruto when he got angry, and even he did not wish to fight him when he was like that. The 2 old friends caught up, and Naruto spoke about the things he had seen, done, and the people he had met, while he asked Ajuka what life as a Satan was like. The simple answer was that it was boring, and he really hoped to retire within the next century. Being a Satan was not all it was cracked up to be. Later that day, Naruto returned to his temporary residence just in time for dinner, as H quickly smelt the delicious aroma of dinner waft towards his nose as he got closer to the tent. Smiling at the thought of having a nice, warm dinner, he quickly frowned when he felt 2 other presences inside the tent. He didn't recognize either of them, and that worried him somewhat. Stepping inside, he saw Kuroka in her usual black robe with her arms crossed in front of her as 2 boys looking around the age of 18 stood in front of her. One had blonde hair that was neatly swept to one side with blue eyes and wore glasses that rested on the bridge of his nose. He wore a smart-looking business suit with a sword that made his senses go haywire over. A holy sword that was more commonly known as Caliban. The other was a man with monkey-like features with dark hair and black eyes. What stood out about him was that he was wearing Chinese armor that dated back to the 3 Kingdoms era of China, and wielded a dark red staff that was draped over his shoulder. Vali wants us to unite now, Kuroka. His betrayal to Aazel will commence soon, and he will need us all there with him, he heard the blonde boy say in a soft voice. The busted redhead Gremory girl and her peerage met him when he introduced himself to the Security. They have been a little on edge about him since they found out he has Albion. I know, it's just something came up. Something I was not expecting to happen. I can't leave now. The Cow's Brigade will be moving soon, Kuroka. We need you to come with us now. If you don't, then your safety will be in jeopardy. Kuroka nodded to them but now noticed Naruto looking towards them with a serious look on his face. Naruto-kun, she said happily, almost forgetting they had company. She had just finished cooking dinner when her two guests had appeared. She was not entirely sure how they managed to find her, but she knew they had friends who would make it look like child play to find someone. Who are you and why are you here? Naruto asked, removing his jacket and making his way over towards the two. My name is Arthur Pendragon, descendant of King Arthur Pendragon, the blonde boy introduced. And this is Biko, descendant of Sun Wukong. We are here to collect our comrade. Comrade, huh? He asked and saw Kuroka gulp as her ears and tails drooped. She forgot to mention that. Forgot or not, she needs to come with us. Our group leader is expecting us all back soon. Well, I think Kuro-chan has made it clear that she does not want to go with you, so you'll find that you will be leaving empty-handed, he said as he took a step closer. We don't not wish to fight with you, devil, but we will if it proves necessary, Arthur stated as his fingers tips brushed against Caliban. We were also here to ask you, Naruto Phoenix, if you would join the Cow's Brigade. A snort was their answer. I already gave my answer and I declined. Whoever your boss is should really stop trying to recruit me. I have no interest in your little group. I see. Well, it was either that or we should try to eliminate you, the boy said as Naruto watched his body tense up, as did Biko, who had a playful look appear on his face. Boy, you're 200 years too young to even think about challenging me. You sound awfully cocky and sure of yourself, the descendant of Sun Wukong said playfully as Naruto shrugged. He didn't care much for what these two teen had to say. Call it what you will, but I know my power, and I can sense yours. I've met the true Monkey King Sun Wukong, and you don't even compare to him, he said to Biko, who gulped slightly at the mention of his ancestor. And you, he said now looking at Arthur. If you think just because you wield one of the strongest holy swords and that it makes you indestructible, then you are greatly mistaken. I have fought against that sword before along with its sister swords, so do not think it scares me in the slightest, because I have seen much worse. The moment he did though, he saw Biko extend his staff and it shoot towards him, while Arthur drew Caliban. He narrowed his eyes at the staff and saw it was covered in a thick veil of energy that he was familiar with. Senjutsu. The staff was about to hit him when Biko, Arthur and even Kuroka were surprised to see Naruto simply move his head to the side before he grabbed the staff. By grabbing it he yanked it forward, making Biko fly forward in surprise before a fire-enhanced kick slammed into his stomach, knocking the wind out of him completely. Arthur held Caliban out in front of him and looked ready to strike with the holy sword, but had to stop when Kuroka appeared in front of him with her eyes looking more cat-like, and let out a low hiss from her mouth and arms stretched out in a protective manner. Don't touch my chosen or I will put you in the ground, Nya, she said venomously, and the three males were surprised at how violent she sounded. The way she said it made it sound so toxic that Arthur and Biko both had to take a step back from how surprised they were. Naruto eyed her curiously as fire danced around his hands before he decided to put it out. He thought over what Kuroka has just said but would come back to it momentarily. Leave, was all Naruto said as he flared his power once again, but this time at a level of an ultimate class devil. It made the entire room shake and they could hear the wind increase all around them. The ground beneath them shook as well, while anything made of glass within the magical tent began to crack over. Outside, the trees looked ready to be blown away while the sky darkened as clouds began to form tornadoes in the sky. Yet the temperature, instead of dropping, only increased and made the two members of the Cow's Brigade begin to sweat. Not saying a word, Naruto and Kuroka watched a magic seal appear beneath Biko and Arthur and teleported them away. Once they were gone, Naruto powered his aura down and everything returned to normal. Kuroka stood there looking a little shaken up and turned to look at Naruto, who was still standing behind her. When she did though, she saw his eyes were narrowed and were looking at her as if waiting for answers. Explain right now, Kuroka, he said to her in all seriousness. All she could do was nod her head. After spending 5 minutes of cleaning up the tent after Naruto flaring his power made a big mess within it, Naruto now sat in front of Kuroka with his arms crossed while Kuroka shuffled nervously in her seat. They found and recruited me about 6 months ago, she explained. I was found by Arthur in rough shape and he took me to a small base they had set up with the rest of their team. They healed me and explained what they were doing. I admit I was interested in what they were offering, and their team or faction as it were are a little different from the rest. They don't follow the Cow's Brigade's roles per se, but it sort of links into it. Going on adventures all around the world. Fighting strong people, stuff like that. The leader of this group in particular is kind of a fight nut. Who is he? He asked, narrowing his eyes. Vala Lucifer, she said, and noticed a low hum come from his chest as he clenched his fists. He also happens to be the wielder of the divine dividing. Naruto nodded. It just means I'll have to use more force to put him down, he thought. He did not trust any member of the old faction, especially not the old Satan families. All the ones he met were all the same. Power crazy and only desired the power to rule and hurt people. He doubted this Vala was any different from the rest. His goal is to fight the true dragon. He thinks because he has the divine dividing that contains the white vanishing dragon that it gives him the ability to kill the true dragon. He wants to prove his strength to everyone. Naruto though snorted. The true dragon. The boy is delirious with power. The true dragon is the strongest entity in the world, made up of infinite and endless power. Not with an army of ultimate class devils could you beat it. Who else is in the Cow's Brigade? He asked and saw her shrug. I'm not entirely sure. In the Vali team other than Vali, Biko and Arthur, the only other person I met was Arthur's little sister LeFay. She is a practicing magician who is hoping to be as strong as her ancestor Morgan Le Fay. No one else? Nothing more of importance? What about a leader behind this cow's brigade? Who put it together? He asked, and she shook her head negatively. The factions, as you could say, don't really associate much with each other. They do their own thing, she said thoughtfully. Leader-wise, though, I'm afraid I don't know. Whoever it is, only Vali knew who it was. When we asked, he just said in due time, and that we would have to wait. Sighing, Naruto just nodded while scratching the back of his head. It was a start at least. If this Vali Lucifer was in any way connected to the old Satan faction, then as far as he was concerned, the boy was as good as dead along with any other members of the old faction that dared to show up. It was not a lot of info since the Cow's Brigade obviously did not want to reveal too much to new members too quickly, but it was a start. At least now he knew that 2 descendants of Arthur Pendragon and Morgan Le Fay was involved, as well as a descendant of Sun Wukong. Alright, well, it's a start at least, he said before he leaned forward towards Kuroka and motioned for her to lean forward too. Now why don't you explain what you meant by your chosen? Quickly he saw her face heat up and gulped slightly as Kuroka fidgeted on her seat, avoiding eye contact with him. His hand came up to her chin though, and gently made her look at him. Please explain, Kuroka-chan. What did you mean? She bit her lip and saw she was trying to nuzzle her face with his hand that was still resting on her chin. It was very affectionate as well, and saw her face getting more and more heated. You did this to me. You made me yours, she said gently, making him look at her surprised. I did no such thing, Kuroka-chan. We have been friendly, and you have been clingier with me, but I have never said you're mine. You took my headband, she told him, getting a confused look. Ever since I was little I said if anyone was able to remove my headband from my head, then that would be the person I would commit myself to forever. Naruto's face now looked at her with widened eyes and a jaw threatening to fall to the ground. I didn't know. I know you didn't, but for female nekishu is very important. We all have our ways of finding our life mates. I always knew I wanted a strong person as a mate, and I knew for a nekishu I was gifted with our techniques and abilities. So I decided that the moment a strong man was able to take my headband, that would be the person I chose as my mate and had babies with. Babies? Naruto asked, taking a deep breath. Of course. Whoever I choose as my life mate will eventually give me babies. The blonde devil just nodded. If his mother was here, she would probably be telling him to go for it, and give her lots of grandchildren to spoil. But since Kuroka was a wanted devil, he questioned how she would feel about it. He would admit Kuroka would without a doubt be a great lover, and seeing her as a potential girlfriend/life mate did draw him in. But there was also Yasaka back in Kyoto that in a way he had promised himself to. While he did not want to turn Kuroka down, he would need to speak with Yasaka first. Kuroka, though, who was still in front of him, breathed deeply and got up on the counter and began crawling towards him. Her nerves seemingly disappeared and now had her flirty look on her face. She sat up on her knees in front of Naruto and with a sudden pull removed his kimono from the top part of her body, revealing her large bust for Naruto to see. Grabbing his hand, she placed it on her breast and where her heart was. This could all be yours. I won't take no for an answer. I'm yours now whether you like it or not. My heart will be yours and yours only, she said as she closed her eyes and felt his hand on her. I don't care if you already have a relationship with that kitsune woman. I can see you two are close and I am willing to share you if need be. You're a powerful male and powerful males take on more than one woman. Make me one of them. I want you to take me and put babies in me, she said almost moaning as she guided his hand down towards her toned flat stomach. Kuroka-chan, he said as her face came forward and captured his mouth with her own. He couldn't help but moan as they both deepened the kiss as he grabbed her and settled her on his lap with her legs wrapping around his midsection. Before we do that, he said, breaking the kiss, getting an annoyed groan from her. I have an offer to make you. He then went into his pants pocket and to Kuroka's surprise pulled out a bishop piece. He sat her back on the counter and placed the 2 bishop pieces on the counter next to her, her eyes not leaving the golden bishop pieces. I'm planning on returning to the underworld soon and I want you to be my bishop. He told her, as she still looked slightly shocked. But I can't. Yeah, you can. I spoke with the guy that's make them. If you accept these pieces, the old pieces will be removed and you will be part of my peerage. But my criminal status? Let me take care of that. You will find that when it comes to the 4 Satans I have a lot of sway over them. Plus once you become part of my peerage you are under the Phoenix name. Meaning they can't touch you. If they dared then I would just send them packing, he said grinning at her before he turned away and headed out. Wait, where are you going? She asked in confusion. So much had happened this evening that it felt like her brain was going to burn out. A guest is here. I'll be back in a moment. Think over my proposition and I will think over yours, he told her, and she just nodded dumbly. Outside, Naruto stood facing forward. A second visit. What is it this time? He asked as Aazel appeared before him with a serious look on his face. Something that will take your interest. 3 days later. Katerea, please don't do this, Cerea shouted as she stared up at a brown-haired woman wearing a revealing top and wore glasses over her eyes. A pair of devil wings were flapping in the air behind her, keeping her elevated while she sneered down at Cerea and the group that was amassed around her. The reason Cerea was there was because she and Sirzex Lucifer, who stood beside her with his wife Graia, were currently representing the devil community, as a meeting between the three factions was set up in order to set up a new alliance and peace treaty between the three factions. Representing the fallen angel was the general of the Gregory Aazel, who came with his ally Vali, who was a silver-haired boy in his late teens. On the angel side was Seraph Gabriel and the current archangel Michael, who both had blonde hair and blue eyes with a halo hovering above their heads. Gabriel had 10 white wings while Michael had 12 golden wings. The meeting had gone off well, with the debate on the Kokabeel incident starting it off. Rias, Gremory, and Sona had given their thoughts and stories on the matter, along with the thoughts of the Rias's pawn Issei Hayadu. Then Aazel had brought up the problem with the Cow's Brigade, and that when everything took a turn, Rias's Bishop Gasper's sacred gear was suddenly unleashed, and everything around them had stopped, with only the leaders and selected members of the rest being able to move, and quickly determined that the Y were under attack. Rias went with her peerage to find Gasper and save him from the people that were trying to use his sacred gear to hurt them, while the leaders and Sona all stood within the confines of the meeting room. At least they did, until an explosion caused them to abandon the room and gather outside. When they did, the old symbol of Leviathan appeared and revealed Katerea Leviathan, the last known descendant of the Leviathan family. You took everything from my family. You Seraphal Citri have what belongs to me. I want it back, she sneered as she held a staff in her hand and magic seals appeared in front of it. So which of you will be the first to fall? From the group, Aazel walked forwards and stared up at the old faction member, and put his hands in his pockets as he stared up at her. So the governor of the Gregory comes first to die, she said before her eyes narrowed when she saw him shake his head. Nah, I'm not really in the mood to fight today, he said, getting odd looks from everyone who was watching. Michael and Serzex both raised their eyebrows at the man who, in their opinion, always had a plan for the worst. Though you do have an opponent if you really want one. He has been itching for a fight with people like you for a while. Who is this trash you speak of? Aazel smirked as his hand pointed upwards. Look up. What? She asked as she looked up. When she did, her face morphed into a look of terror just as a large comet-like fireball suddenly slammed into her face and slammed her right into the ground, making a giant crater form in the earth. Before anyone could speak, an enormous wall of fire easily around 200 meters tall suddenly circled around the academy, while previously clear sky suddenly darkened over, and enormous clouds began to form. What's happening? Sona asked before she looked around and noticed everyone had a different look on their faces. Seraphal looked ready to start crying as her hand over her mouth. Serzex looked very nervous while Graia was biting her lip hard enough to make blood draw. Michael and Gabriel looked slightly concerned while Aazel was grinning. Wanisan, what's happening? Sona asked as a powerful presence appeared on the roof of Ko Academy. When they saw who it was, she heard Seraphal begin sobbing. Sona quickly understood why. Naruto Phoenix stood on top of Ko Academy, looking not much different to how they remembered him. There were a few changes, such as the scar over his eye, but he looked as if he had not aged a day. Naruto took a deep breath as he looked down towards the group and saw Aazel nod over at him. He saw Michael and Gabriel and gave them both a small nod and saw them do the same. Seraphal he had to smile at, and his eyes softened when he saw her upset. No doubt he was in for either a massive hug or a giant slap from the dark-haired girl. He turned his head and then he saw the two he was least looking forward to seeing again. He saw them both looking up at him, one with a sad expression and one with a nervous expression. When his eyes narrowed at them, he saw both Serzex and Graia turn to look away. Everyone watched as 1 second he was on the roof and then the next he was standing by the crater Teat Katerea was climbing out of. Said girl had scorched mark across her face with a murderous expression on her face, her staff gripped tightly in her hand. Who dares? Looking up, she saw Naruto standing there, and her blood ran cold when she noticed who it was that had hit her with the fireball. I dare. Chapter 4 completed. Chapter 5. Naruto didn't wait for Katerea to begin her assault on him and quickly appeared in front of her, getting shocked eyes from the girl at how quick he was. His right leg collided with her stomach and kicked her into the air. On his back, enormous wings made of fire burst out of his back, causing many to look away from how intense the heat was. Sona, who had seen the Phoenix family's wings before, was left slightly in awe at how large his wings were. They were easily 3 times bigger than the ones she had seen on Riser Phoenix during his match with Issei. They were easily a lot hotter, as well as sweat began forming on her forehead. Pushing himself into the air, he watched Katerea put his staff in front of her, and 4 magic seals appeared around it. Blasts of energy shot out, each thick and potent with dark magic. With his wings we easily avoided the attacks, and even kicked one which was sent high into the air, and causing a small explosion of darkness to cover the sky for a brief moment. Naruto Phoenix, damn you, Katerea shouted as her staff was thrusted forward again as 4 more magic seals appeared. Heiken was all she heard as she saw an enormous pillar of fire began charging towards her. She created defense seals around her body, but the moment the fire hit, cracks immediately formed on the seals and quickly broke them apart. She pushed herself backwards and flew higher in the air to avoid the fire. However, when she got a safe level, she saw Naruto wasps no longer in front of her, but had now appeared above her. How are you moving so fast? She asked, glaring at one of the men responsible for her family's downfall. Naruto, though, never answered and remained quiet. Everyone then watched as he flipped himself over in the air. His right leg was extended, and they watched as his entire leg became covered, a blue fire-covered leg with talons that resembled a bird of prey. His leg came down and hit Katerea hard in the chest and shoulder and threw her down back to the ground and crashed right through one of the coast school buildings. Not giving her a chance to counter with her own attack, Naruto quickly appeared above the now partially destroyed building and aimed for the hole where she had fallen through. Phoenix flowers, he whispered as he put his hand to his mouth and shot out fireball the size of basketball that were each shaped like flower petals. Each of the fireball went straight through the hole and ignited the building as fire shot out of the hole. Outside they could all heard Katerea screaming in pain as she was being burned alive. While the younger devils winced and had to look away, the older devils and the other leaders of the other faction remained stoic, not showing any emotion to the brutal attack. Old faction trash, Naruto whispered as his wing of fire disappeared and he free fell to the ground. Cracks formed on the spot he landed on, and dusted his shoulder of any ash or dust he got caught on his jacket. He turned back around to look towards the group and saw Cerea looking ready to race over towards him. He stopped though when he felt a power spike come from the building that came from the old Leviathan devil woman. Turning back around he narrowed his eyes when he saw Katerea walking out of the building, limping as she did. The once beautiful devil now had half of her hair burned off along with multiple burns and wounds covering her arms, legs and stomach. Her clothes had been burned off, leaving her naked for the world to see. Her face though was contorted into a mixture of pain and anger as her eyes were wide with an insane look in them. "You will not take this from me," she rasped out. "I will take my place as queen of the underworld and you will bow to me." After that she made a small jar appear in her right hand that was covered in devil runes and sealed. She waved her hand and quickly made them disappear before ripping the lid of the top. Naruto watched with narrowed eyes as purple like snake figures wriggled out of the jar and began leeching and absorbing itself to Katerea, who had a wide smirk on her face. The snakes began to glow with an orangey glow around them as began to meld with Katerea, and he watched as her body began to change and alter itself. Her arms became long and more tentacles-like while her hair and face features became more wild. Her breasts even got larger, and her body became more toned. The most noticeable difference though was her power level had jumped again. Walking forward towards her he heard her begin to laugh before a powerful beam of energy shot out from her mouth, breasts, and the tip of the tentacles. Naruto sighed and cracked his shoulders in preparation and extended his hands out to each side of him. His fingers stretched and flexed, and those watching could see his arms flexing as he prepared his move. Then just when they got close to him he brought his hand together and clapped his hands. The clap was so loud as made many cover their ears, but they then watched as an enormous force of wind created by the clap blocked the beams of energy and send them spiraling away. "You'll have to do better than that," he said before he felt something connect with his shoulder. He looked over to see his right shoulder was now gone and currently in the process of healing. He hardly felt it though it did sting a little. He looked over and saw Katerea racing towards him with her wings stretched out wide. "I see your little trick made you and your attacks faster, and not just stronger. I'll keep that in mind," he said as his wings shot out on his back and he went into the air with her. "I guess I will just need to take this to the next level as well." When he finished speaking he powered up even more to the point where Sona could feel he was now stronger than he was when he was fighting Kokobile 2 weeks ago. If it had not been for Cerea standing next to her using her demonic aura to protect her, then she would be on the floor struggling to breathe. "You won't beat me," Katerea told him as her jaws extended to an inhuman length with her tongue getting longer in the process. "I am destined for greatness. Not even you can stop me." He then watched as she got a sultry look on her face and pushed her breasts towards him while her hands gently rubbed over them. "Why not join me? Join us. You could be a great ally and I could give everything you desire," she told him. "I would give you myself to you. A strong woman for a strong man. Think about the outcomes if we united. Our children could be great. They would be the most powerful devilish to ever be brought to life." Any normal man would have been tempted by the offer, especially with her large bust swaying from side to side like they were trying to hypnotize him. But this was Naruto Phoenix. He was no ordinary devil. "I'll pass," he told her. "Your great body does not match your awful personality. Get lost." Cerea would have begun laughing if she had not seen Naruto make fire appear up and down his arms while he outstretched them. She recognized that posture and had a feeling she knew what was coming next. Enraged at being turned away, Katerea let her anger take over and flew straight towards him. When she got a few meters away from him, the fur along his arms increased. Naruto's body then began moving as if it was on automatic. "Blazing Katen," he spoke as his body spun around in the air at a tremendous speed. When he did, an enormous sphere of fire sudden erupted from his body and covered everything around him, including Katerea, who couldn't get herself out of the way from the attack. Those watching again had to cover their eyes because the fire was so bright and the sphere was enormous. It was as large as the school in size and the heat from it easy tremendous. It was as if a miniature sun had just appeared out of nowhere. "What power!" Sona commented as she was in complete awe. From what she had seen, the stories she had heard about his power were paling in comparison to what she was seeing. Her parents had told her all about Naruto Phoenix, including the real reason he left. It had left her with a very cold outlook on the Gremory family and Cerea. She did not believe that Cerea and Graia, two people that in a way were like a brother and sister to her like Cerea could ever do such thing. Her respect for the two devils had taken a very large blow. In terms of the power of Naruto Phoenix, she readily agreed with what her parent told her. If Naruto went all out at his full power, He could destroy all of Japan many times over with plenty of power to spare. It was frightening power. Above in the sky the attack began to wear off as Naruto slowed down and eventually stopped, making the fire around him disappear completely. In front of him was whatever is left of Katerea Leviathan. Both of her legs were now gone and her entire body was covered in burns. Her hair was now completely gone along with one of her eyes that had been burnt away. The skin on her right side of the face had been melted off and her teeth and scarred muscle flesh was all that could be seen. Bastard, Katerea managed to rasp out though speaking made her entire body wince in pain, and she could feel the strain. Naruto scratched the back of his head before he felt her two tentacles-like arms attach themselves to his right arm. He kept forgetting she was pretty fast with that power-up. He then watched as red symbols appeared along her body and up the tentacles attached to him. Her mouth contorted into a tiny smirk. If I die then I am taking you with me. The answer she got back was a raised eyebrow and watched him shake his head. Yeah, I don't think so, he told her, figuring out it was some kind of self-destruct curse. She watched as his other hand had wind wrap around it as he held it up before bringing it down on his arm just above where her tentacles were at cut his arm off. No! She screeched as she neared her destruction as Naruto sent one last kick to her stomach that sent her high into the air. His right arm though gone was already healing itself as fire appeared from the stump and slowly a new arm began to form. Watching Katerea he let out a sigh of relief as he watched her body destroy itself. That's one more gone for good. As his arm healed he saw the group with the leaders look towards him, and he was set to head over, but to his right he had felt another battle taking place while he was fighting Katerea. Flashing over to the other battle he saw two boys on the ground around the same age glaring at one another. One was the Sekiryutai he had saw during the Kokobile incident, and the other he guessed was the Hakuri with the glowing blue and white wings on his back. Naruto's eyes narrowed tough when he figured this was Vali Lucifer, the boy Kuroka had told him about. Dropping down to the ground he walked at a steady pace towards the duo and watched as Rias Gremory and her peerage appeared behind the Sekiryutai. Give up Vali, it's over, Issei told him as he took deep breaths and looked on the verge of passing out as a bracelet around his wrist broke into multiple pieces. Meanwhile Vali steadily stood up as he entered his balance breaker mode again without the helmet forming. He was about to attack Issei, making the Gremory peerage ready themselves. However, behind Vali, Biko appeared and dropped UT of a tree with his staffs on his shoulder. What bring you here, Biko? Vali asked. They want you back. Apparently they want you for some fight that will take place up north. Hey, who the hell are you? Issei shouted out as he stood back on his feet and let his gauntlet appear back on his hand. Issei, be careful. You have used up a lot of energy today, Rias told him, but the brown-haired boy's focus was entirely on the two members of the Cow's Brigade. His name is Biko, descendant of Sun Wukong, Naruto stated, letting himself be known as everyone turned to look towards him. They all saw Biko take a step back in fear while Rias had gone pale with her eyes widening in shock. Naruto Phoenix, she said aloud, making everyone else gulp and realize who he was. They had all been told he was the one who saved them, and Rias could not believe she had been speaking to one of the great heroes and most powerful devils alive. We need to go, Biko said to Vali, grabbing his shoulder as a magic seal appeared beneath them. Vali though had a look of excitement appear on his face at the prospect of facing Naruto as he and Biko began to sink into the seal. Vali Lucifer, Naruto spoke as everyone else looked surprised at the declaration, while Vali narrowed his eyes. He guessed Kuroka had told him about who he really was. I'll remember that name the next time I destroy a scumbag from the old Satan faction. Vali looked like he was about to speak, but both he and Biko completely disappeared, leaving the Gremory peerage and Naruto behind looking at the spot where Vali and Biko had previously been standing. With most of the enemies gone, Naruto took a deep breath and turned to look at the Gremory peerage, who were all standing a little wide-eyed at him. You kids alright? He asked in a gruff tone, and watched them quickly nod their heads. Being the first one to snap out of their shock, Rias quickly bowed to Naruto. Thank you, Naruto-sama, for both saving my peerage in this situation and from the attack 2 weeks ago. In response, Naruto just shrugged. Don't mention it. I was only there because someone called in a favor. He told them. Can you move, Sekiryutai? All he got in response was a head shake before he walked forwards and put Issei over his shoulder in a fireman carry before he began walking away. The peerage quickly followed after him with Rias and a blonde-haired girl fussing over Issei while the blonde girl tried to heal him as they were moving. 5 minutes later, and after admiring all of the carnage and destruction that had been brought to the school, they eventually arrived at the meeting room. Despite it being mostly destroyed in the explosion, thanks to the use of magic from the leader, the room looked almost as good as new. As soon as he walked in, the room went silent. He paid no attention to them before placing Issei on a chair with Rias and the blonde girl, whose name was Asia, quickly surrounded him. However, the moment he turned around, he felt a small figure slam into him and felt a pair of arms wrap around his stomach and a head firmly put itself on his chest. Looking down, his eyes softened when he saw Cerea fall, holding on to him tightly as she let her sobs and tears finally be expressed. Cerea-chan, he said softly, you jerk. She sobbed as her feet kicked his shins. 200 years and we don't get any word from you. No phone calls, no letters, no nothing. Do you know how worried we have all been? Many thought you were dead. Quickly he began to feel bad and guilty as Cerea sobbed out how annoyed she is with him despite never letting go of the hug. He always knew that Serafal would be more emotional than others when they came back and was not surprised by this reaction. They had been very close before he left, and she was one of his best friends for a very long time. He didn't take into account how much it would affect her. Slowly his arms wrapped around Serafal, and he placed his head on top of her. Sorry, Sarah-chan. You know what a baka can be, he whispered in her ear as she nodded her head on his. Giant baka, she said before she placed a big kiss on his cheek and wrapped her legs around his waist while putting her head in the crook of his neck. You're not going to move from that spot for the rest of the day now, are you? He said and felt her shake his head. Thought so. That was a badass entrance, Naruto-san, Aazel commented as he pat Naruto's shoulder with a big grin plastered on his face. I always knew you had style. While my words won't be as colorful as Aazel, I agree that it was fortunate that you arrived when you did, Naruto-san, Michael said as he and Gabriel stepped forward and shook his hand and thanked him for the assistance. Well, this idiot told me what was happening and suggested that I came as backup, so to speak, he told them. I figured it was time to end my self-imposed exile. Anything with the old Satan faction in it, then I want to be there to put them away. Michael nodded while Gabriel, who was standing behind Michael, gave Naruto a flirty wink that they all saw. Aazel grinned and patted his back again, while Serafal glared at the woman she called her rival with, as if she was going to make the angel combust right there on the spot. Stay away from my Narutan, she thought as she tightened her grip on him. Naruto-sama, he heard as he turned to see Sona Citri standing there with her queen Tsubaki and the rest of her peerage behind her. They all bowed at the same time before Sona spoke. Naruto-sama, we thank you for saving us during the incident with Kokobile. We are in your debt, she told him, but saw him wave it off. Don't worry about Sona-chan. Like I said, I could never let Sarah-chan's baby sister get hurt, he said, making Sona look a little annoyed while Serafal's eyes sparkled as she nuzzled her face with Naruto's. Though annoyed, Sona was glad Serafal's attention and affection was not on her. It was nice to not have her sister overbearing personality always stuck on her. Maybe now she didn't have to worry about her sister always embarrassing her. Though now looking at Serafal, she knew now that she definitely liked Naruto Phoenix more than just a friend. She was never this familiar or friendly with other male devils. Serafal had never shown much interest in male devils, and for a time Sona actually believed Serafal had a thing for girls rather than boys. Now though she knew that was not true, and her actions right now was proof of that. She never had eyes for any man because they had already focused on the man she wanted. Sona now firmly believed her sister was in love with Naruto Phoenix. Narutan is still so brave, like I remember, Serafal chanted happily as she let out a girlish giggle as continued to nuzzle with Naruto, who, though rolling his eyes, had to smile. Naruto. The hair on the back of his back stood up as his head gently moved to the side. Everyone looked over towards the voice, and Serafal noticed his yes had narrowed as he was glaring towards the side of them. Cerea stepped forward with a nervous smile on his face, with Graia standing beside him, whose eyes were firmly plastered on Naruto. A smile was tugging at the side of her mouth. Hee, how you been, buddy? It's been a long time. We've missed you, Cerea said happily as he waved his hands in the air childishly and stepped forward with an arm stretched out. Rias, her peerage, and Graia all smiled at Cerea's friendly attitude towards Naruto. Rias, who was aware of the friendship the two once shared, was happy to see her brother reunite with his longtime friend. Everyone else, however, looked rather nervously and took a step back. The reason being Naruto's eyes had narrowed to dangerous proportions, and they felt the temperature heat up. Serafal hopped off of Naruto and turned to tug him away from them, but Naruto walked forward towards Cerea with his right arm outstretched. Just as Cerea was about to shake his longtime friend's hand after so long, pain suddenly erupted from his face and felt the ground beneath him suddenly leave him. To every single person, they were all left shell-shocked, while the devil all looked as if hell just froze over. Naruto's first was extended with small flames flickering on his knuckles, while in front of him a hole was now in the wall with Cerea on the ground outside, having been punched out of the 4-story building. Cerea/Oni-san, Graia, and Rias called as their devil wings shot out. Before they could move, however, they found the older Phoenix member gripping their elbows tightly and looking at them with a serious look. He looked at Rias first, who looked rather frightened before turning towards Graia. She had not aged a day in his opinion, and was still as beautiful as ever. Her long hair was now tied in neat braids, which disappointed him. She was more beautiful with her hair down, and her body didn't look like she had had a kid. She seemed more uptight in his opinion as well, and he guessed her days of being free-spirited were long over. Graia meanwhile stared into his blue eyes, and she could still see the sadness and hurt that she had helped caused all those years ago. He was still as handsome as always, and without a doubt he only got better over time. She was about to stretch her hand up to him, but she saw him shake his head and stopped herself. I will warn both of you now, he said in a serious and eerie tone that made them both shudder. If any of your family come anywhere near me, I will roast you alive. Keep your husband away from me. The tone he spoke and left everyone knowing he was deadly serious. Rias's peerage went to move, but one look from Naruto made them all freeze on the spot. He dared them to interfere. Do you understand? Both girls nodded. We understand, Graia whispered as her eyes glossed over. The moment his hand let her arm go, she bolted for the wall, not wanting to let people see the sparkling tears run down her face. She still had a reputation to uphold. Why are you like this? What makes you think you can threaten my family? Rias asked, getting some of her courage and putting her hands on her hips. You cannot make threats against the Gremory family. We are the strongest in the underworld. His eyes looked at her with little recognition that inwardly infuriated Rias, even more so when he snorted. Why don't you ask those parents of yours? Your family has shamed my family enough. It won't happen again. He then turned his back to her and walked back towards Cerea and the other leader who were waiting patiently. He ignored Rias trying to get his attention, while her peerage tried to calm her down. I apologize for the interruptions and the scene I caused. I hope you understand, he said politely to the other's leader who nodded back in understanding. Even the higher up in the other factions were aware of what went down between him, Cerea and Graia. Cerea stood beside him and wanted to hold onto his arm but stopped when she saw the phoenix seal appear beneath him. You're not leaving, are you? She asked, panicked, not wanting him to completely disappear from them all again. She went to lunge at him but felt Sona gently hold her arm to keep her from making a scene. I'm not disappearing, he told Cerea, seeing she didn't want him to go just yet. But I have some people back at home that I haven't seen in 200 years just like you. It's time I went to see them and showed them I was okay. Despite wanting more of his time, Cerea nodded before she stuck out her pinky finger. Promise you won't disappear again? Naruto laughed before he nodded and wrapped his pinky finger around hers. I promise, Cerea-chan. If you want you can come round the Phoenix's estate later. I have a few stories to tell which you may enjoy. Cerea was practically bouncing on the balls of her feet and nodded happily. I will. I will. I will. She happily chanted as Naruto sent her a wink. The phoenix seal erupted in light and fire as Naruto began to teleport away. Just before he completely left, he saw Cerea stumble inside and look at him. Smirking, Naruto raised his hand and gave Cerea his middle finger before he teleported away. We are so fucked, Cerea whispered as Graia nodded sadly. Things were going to change in the underworld and the Gremory family would be feeling it without a doubt. Underworld. This place hasn't changed a bit, he said as he looked up at the front of the Phoenix mansion. The large royal-looking Phoenix palace had not changed in any way during his absence. Beautiful roses decorated the walls of the palace in warm colors of red, orange, purple and blue, while the pillars still had the burning torches always on to guide their guests to the front door. Walking forward and walking up the large door, he grabbed the handle and gently pushed it open. He never needed a key since anyone of Phoenix blood or who was a servant of the Phoenix family was keyed into the palace, and could walk in without a problem. Anyone who tried to force their way in would get a nasty surprise in the form of being set on fire. Walking inside, he had to stop and look around at the large hallway as many memories of his childhood rushed back to him. He had taken his first steps in this hallway, and remembered waiting on the large staircase for his parents to come home with his little brother Rival. On the side, pictures of their family littered the tables and cabinets, with a large painting of his parents settled on one of the wall, looking happy and very in love. His parents were actually both from the Phoenix family, but were not siblings or cousins or anything like that. They were cousins twice removed. His father was part of the main branch of the Phoenix family while his mother was part of the branch family. It was not uncommon for family members to marry other members of their family. A lot of the other devil families did it, including Cerea parents Lord and Lady Citri, who were second are cousins as well. The only different he knew of was Lord Gremory and Lady Gremory, who was originally from the Bale family. Who are you? He heard as he turned to his left and saw a younger version of his mother standing there in a pink dress with her hands on her hips. She had a pink fan in her hands and was staring at him intently. The resemblance was uncanny, and it was then that he realized this was his little sister Ravel he had heard about. Why are you staring at me? She asked, feeling a little nervous from his stare. He quickly shook his head and smiled at her. I'm sorry, Ravel. I'm just a little shocked as how much you like our mother. The resemblance is quite uncanny, really, he said as he took a few steps closer towards the confused-looking girl. Our mother? She said, looking him over, and the gears in her head began to click and she began to realize who this man was. She dropped her fan in surprise only for it to be caught by Naruto before it hit the ground. She looked up at him with wide eyes. You know, I always wanted a little sister, so you can imagine my disappointment when our parents came home with Rival, he said, making her chuckle a little as her face became scrunched up and her lip began to shake. You're Naruto. You're my big brother, she whispered as Naruto placed his hand on top of her head and placed his forehead on hers. I am. And I'm sorry it taken me so long to meet you, Ravel-chan, he said soothingly, and saw her nod her head before she leaned into him. Understanding the gesture, he wrapped his arms around Ravel and brought her in close as he smiled at finally holding his younger sister in his arms. He felt her grip his shirt and sniffle a little. He wondered just how much his parents had told her about him. Ravel, who are with? Lord Phoenix asked, appearing as he came down the stairs before stopping when he saw Naruto look up at him with a smile, still with his arms wrapped around Ravel. My son. Hey Dad, Naruto said as his father briskly walked down the stairs and hugged his son tightly, chuckling in happiness while Ravel was caught in the middle of them. Not that she minded though when she felt her father bring her into the hug and felt herself smile. Her father was not usually a very affectionate man, and was normally quite a serious person, though everyone in the family knew he had a softer side to him, especially around Ravel. Lady Phoenix had joked he was like a squishy marshmallow when he was with his daughter. My son, he said, extending his arms and getting a good look at Naruto. He could see his son had definitely taken after his mother more in terms of look, but he saw hints of himself in there along with the matching serious side that both shared. He frowned, thought the scar that was over Naruto's eye, and knew his son must have met someone pretty powerful to have been able to leave a mark on his body. It is good to have you home at last. This house and this family has missed you dearly. I have missed you too, Dad. I'm sorry it took me so long to come home, but I hope you understand why I left in the first place, he said with Lord Phoenix shaking his head dismissively. We all understood the reason, though we wish you could have kept in contact with us or at least let us know where you were and how you were, he said sternly, making Naruto chuckle nervously and scratch the back of his head. But you're here now and I guess that's what counts, he told him with Naruto smiling and nodding towards his father. I should go and inform your brothers that you are home. I'm sure they will be eager to see you. I would like that. Is Mother around? Naruto asked and saw both his father and Revel nod. She's out in the gardens. I'll go and take you there, Revel told him as she took his hand excitedly, and led them away while Lord Phoenix went to his office to make a few calls. Naruto walked at a quick pace as Revel dragged him behind her, the happy and teary eyes still on her face as they exited the large palace, and found themselves outside in the Phoenix Palace's enormous garden. Just in the distance they could see Lady Phoenix happily walking through the garden as she admired the beautiful flowers that made the Phoenix estate so beautiful and famous. I'll go tell her while you walk over to us, Revel said, not leaving him with room for argument before she flew over towards Lady Phoenix while Naruto walked at a slow pace towards them. He took large and slow breaths and he neared them and could feel his nerves building up. Would his mother be angry? Sad? Furious? Upset? He knew his leaving had hurt her, but it was never intentional. Hurting his mother was never something he wanted to happen. As he got closer towards them he saw his mother turn towards his direction, and she looked like she was about to drop to the ground in shock. Revel had to steady her to keep her from dropping to the ground. Her hand shot up to her mouth, trying to muffle the sobs coming from her, but it was no use. Her cries of happiness were too loud to be hidden. Along her cheeks tears flowed down them like river streams and showed no case of stopping. When he got even closer her legs finally began working and he saw her lifting the hem of her dress and quickly making her way towards him, her cries becoming louder and louder the closer she got. When she was only a few meters in front of him he leapt from the spot and threw her arms around her eldest son and began crying into his chest as her arms shot around him and held him as tightly as possible. Naruto could feel the tears go through his clothes and could feel his mother's body shake. When he wrapped his arms around her body and placed his head on her shoulder like he used to, he felt his mother sob even more. She felt that if she let go then her son would disappear again. Hi Mom, he said as he made her look at him. Sorry I took so long to come home. Her response was a hearty laugh mixed through her crying and she leaned up and began placing motherly kisses all along his face that made Revel smile and giggle as she watched them. I have missed you so much, she told him through her sniffles as she placed her hands on each side of his face and gently caressed it in a motherly fashion. He felt her thumb trace over the scar over his eye and could see that she was going to question him about it at some point. You are not going away ever again, young man, she told him as she wiped her eyes and felt Naruto place his arm across her shoulders and kiss the top of her head. I promise I won't, Mom, he said, making her smile happily before he felt a sharp whack on the back of his head courtesy of his mother. That's for not calling us at all. That will be the least of your worries when I'm through with you, she said, making him gulp and nod his head quickly, which brought another smile to his mother's face as it softened. She looped her arm into his and placed her head on his shoulder. I want to know everything. Don't leave anything out, she told him as Revel held onto his other arm and nodded in agreement. I'll explain later, I promise. Cerea-chan will be here later, so I will explain it all when everyone's together, he told them both. Lady Phoenix simply nodded and led them back to the palace. Everyone could see she was practically glowing in happiness at having her son back. That, and the spark that had disappeared along with her son 200 years ago, had finally come back. Chapter 5 completed. What if Naruto inherited primordial power in high school DxD? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.